The candlelight in the long hall of the Red Keep quivered against the first breath of dawn, casting Samwell Tarly's shadow across the vellum-strewn table like a great black maester's quill. He had not slept since completing the work, 311 pages stitched and sealed with his own trembling hand. And now he watched the ink dry as though it were wildfire, aware that the smallest slip of thought could still ignite the realm. The book's title, stark and uncluttered, stared back at him. The Hidden Dragon, a true account of His Grace Aegon Targaryen, sixth of his name, called Jon Snow. The moment the last blot set, Sam felt a quiet in his heart that was both triumph and doom. Around him, Gilly dozed in a chair with baby Sam curled upon her chest. The child's slow breaths counted out the seconds until ravens would fly. He rose, joints aching, and drew back the shutters. King's Landing misted below, rooftops shimmering like scales in the half-light. Somewhere beyond the mudgate, the Unsullied were already changing watch, their silent discipline an offense to the chaos that roiled within him. It had been months since Queen Daenerys' death beneath Drogon's scream-shadowed wings, months since Lord Tyrion's persuasion yielded King Bran the Broken, and the High Lords crowned a Stark who wielded no sword and bore no heir. Peace should have followed, but rumors bred in the gutters. Who had the truer claim? Jon Snow, vanished to the far north in silent exile, or the crippled boy king enthroned by counsel? Sam's book would answer, no demand. That question anew, and once the question took wind, every answer would taste of blood. He kissed Gilly's brow, whispering an apology neither of them could yet fathom, and padded into the corridor, clutching the single master copy. The Red Keep's passages were half unmanned now, many guards having sailed with Grey Worm for Neath. Their abandoned posts filled by sellswords, riverfolk, and a smattering of Stormlanders sworn to Lady Brienne. Sam had learned to move unseen. A hefty man in a maester's robe was so expected in libraries that he became invisible. He descended the winding stairs past the rookery, where white ravens dozed on perches, and down to the castle's small scriptorium. Two journeymen sat huddled over a brazier, warming inkstones. They rose as he entered. "Archmaester?" one asked, though Sam remained only a maester by chain, never claiming the higher ring he might have earned had Old Town not burned in civil tumult. Still, the Citadel men in exile honored him. He laid the leather-bound tome on the counter and cleared his throat. 500 copies, he said. No fewer. Copyists you trust, parchment you can spare, and ink strong enough to last a century. Each is to bear my seal and this note. He slid a folded sheet across the wood. When the sets are bound, one bundle to every great house, north and south, river and rock, and 10 copies to the faith militant. The second copyist paled. Your pardon, Maester Samwell, but the crown. King Bran ordered the realm built on truth. Sam cut in, quieter than a whisper yet firmer than steel. This is truth. We serve, we do not rule. See it done. The men bowed. Sam pressed silver stags on their palms, payment from coins he had saved in secret, and left them to their labor. Outside he paused in a niche to steady his breathing, then rapped twice upon a concealed door. The hinges groaned, and Sir Davos Seaworth emerged, smelling of sea salt despite months in court. The Onion Knight glanced at the book, and an old grief clouded his eyes. It's done then. Sam nodded. You'll be called Oathbreaker, Davos warned, voice low. Some will name it treason. Only those whose power rests on a lie, Sam replied. He thought of Sansa in Winterfell, ruling the North as queen in all but name. Of Tyrion bending every sinew to hold a fragile council together. Of Bran, inscrutable in his weirwood dark gaze, drifting between moments like a ghost. Jon deserves choice. The realm deserves knowledge. The rest is for the gods. Davos sighed. I've arranged a ship. The Gulltown galleys are still loyal. As soon as those pages are inked, they sail. Thank you. They clasped forearms, and Sam felt the callus of a lifetime on Davos' skin. Smuggler's scars, king's scars. Then the night slipped away, cloak folding behind him. Dawn had turned to full day. Somewhere far beneath, bells tolled the hour. And with them Sam heard the realm awaken to the last morning. It would know before certainty cracked it open. 3 weeks later, ravens hammered across the skies like a living storm. Scrolls, bearing the wax seal of a black-winged book, landed in Winterfell, River Run, Highgarden, Sunspear, Old Town, even in distant Ashai, where a red priestess unfurled one beside a smoking brazier. In White Harbor, Lady Lyanna Mormont read aloud on the docks, until the entire town square listened in awed silence. In the Vale, Lord Robin Arryn dropped the parchment halfway through, pale as milk glass, and begged his maester to swear it false. The faith militant propped copies in the sept of the seven-pointed star, preaching that a dragon-born king anointed by the gods had been denied his seat. Sparrows flocked, whispers thickening to sermons, sermons to riots. At Winterfell, Sansa Stark paced the crypts, candlelight flaring on her mother's statue. "Jon never wanted the throne," she said to Arya, who leaned against a pillar sharpening needle. "Sam should have asked us." Arya's stone-cold eyes flicked to her sister. If Sam asked Jon, Jon would have burned the pages. Sometimes the only way to honor someone is to defy them. Sansa bristled. "The North is free because we bled for it. If the realm drags Jon back, do we kneel again? We decide that when he answers." Arya sheathed her sword. "I'll find him." And like a shadow, she vanished into the snow. Far to the south, King's Landing heaved beneath rallies. Tyrion Lannister, Hand of the King, held council while throngs chanted in the streets, "Dragon's heir! Dragon's heir!" The Hand's chamber smelled of sour wine and fear. Bronzed sunlight slanted onto parchments mapping supply lines, quills scratched like claws. Across the table, Lord Gendry Baratheon slammed his fist down. "Half the Stormland swear to Jon already," he barked. "The other half wait to see which way the wind boils. If we delay, they'll raise banners." Sir Brienne stiffened in shining plate, eyes flitting to Podrick. "But the king?" "The king says nothing." Tyrion massaged his temples. "We ask," Bran answers with silences. "I am hand to a ghost." Varys might have smiled at that old jape, Tyrion mused bitterly, had the spider lived. Tyrion's gaze drifted to the window, where black sails bobbed in the black water, sigils newly painted, a three-headed dragon above the name Aegon. "Send envoys," he ordered. "Promise pardons, trade, safer roads. Drown them in pragmatism. Revolutions starve if they cannot buy bread." Brienne frowned. "We cannot buy hearts, my lord. Hearts are won." Then pray to win them," Tyrion muttered. "And pray the rightful heir remains buried in snow, content with ghosts." North of the Wall, Jon Snow felt the tremor of fate long before a raven found him. Ghosts' red eyes tracked the sky each dusk, uneasy. The free folk had followed him beyond Eastwatch, hunting elk among glassy lakes where spring thawed into green. He had shed names: King in the North, Lord Commander, Bastard. He led with silence, and they answered with trust. When Tormund Giantsbane trudged through the campfire ring one dusk bearing a letter, the hush was palpable. Jon cracked the seal. He read first with disbelief, then with the sinking comprehension of a man who recognizes every step of his life arranged in lines of ink that now belonged to every lord in Westeros. He lowered the parchment. Free folk stared at him, not distrustful, but curiously reverent, as if the words transformed him into legend. Jon met Tormund's eyes. "Say something," Tormund urged. Jon folded the letter carefully. "Words on paper don't change who I am, but they've changed the world that forgot me. Bem Tantor." Tormund spat into the fire. "Then we'll change it back. Burn every copy." Jon almost laughed. "There will be hundreds." He turned toward the southern horizon, a sliver of cloud tinted red by the dying sun. "And if I stay here, one truth will feed 1,000 lies. Better a living man than a myth for others to wield." He left before dawn. Ghost padded at his side. Tormund, swearing, joined him. A dozen spearwives followed, and soon a tattered column of wildlings snaked through the frost flowers. They rode south toward Eastwatch, and every mile felt like a noose tightening. At Old Town, the Hightower's shadow cut noon like a sundial when Aegon Dane, called the Silver Star, strode into the dock market with sword on hip, and one of Samwell's books under his arm. He read aloud to the sailors, his Dornish vowels smooth. The crowd thickened. Someone tossed him a silver star, then a purse. A troubadour began singing of the dragon prince who bled for the north. By nightfall, 3 cog captains swore their ships to King Aegon. Dane offered deeds and future titles, sealing each vow with a crimson kiss on his sword's edge. In the Reach, Lady Olenna's distant cousin Lady Lysa Meadows met with farmers in apple orchards, telling them a king born of ice and fire would restore trade ravaged by war. "Help me feed his realm," she pleaded, "and he will feed your children." Gold moved. Harvest wagons rattled, and the songs drifted like pollen. The revolts were not yet banners, but notions, free as dandelion seeds. Yet ideas have roots the moment they touch soil, and Samwell's book had scattered them on every breeze. Tyrion paced the inner courtyard, where a weirwood sapling Bran insisted be planted. So, the past may watch the future. The white bark was flecked scarlet, leaves unfurling like half-formed hands. Beside the trunk, King Bran sat in his wheeled chair, skin pale as moonmilk. Tyrion halted before him. "Your Grace, the realm stands on a knife. Say the word. Confirm Jon Snow's exile, name Sansa your heir, or—" Bran's eyes flickered, pupils dilating as if seeing distant centuries. "The realm has chosen its truth." "Truth can be steered," Tyrion insisted. "Give it shape, or it shapes us." Bran's head tilted. "Did you steer the wildfire under King Aerys, or did wildfire steer men's hearts?" Samwell lit a slow flame. "Let it burn until only what matters stands unscorched." Tyrion felt a chill. "And what matters?" Bran smiled faintly. "Choice." The hand left. Shaken. Later, he found Sir Davos on the ramparts. Below, citizens thronged, torches flaring like fallen constellations. Some chanted Jon's name, others hurled rotten fruit at the gates. Davos leaned on the parapet. "Ragmen from Fleabottom," he said. "But they're growing bolder. If Jon walks through that gate, they'll crown him with flowers." "Or stones," Tyrion muttered. Davos arched a brow. "Stones break bones. Flowers break kingdoms." It was in White Harbor that the first sword unsheathed drew steel's shriek across the known world. Lady Lyanna Mormont, fierce as the bear on her banner, had arrived to rally northern traders. A crownlender tax collector, newly appointed by King's Landing, attempted to board a grain barge laden for Hardhome. She blocked him. "By right of the North, that grain keeps wildling babes alive." She snapped. "The king levies tithe." The man answered, lifting a small iron badge bearing Bran's direwolf. "Stand aside." Lyanna's blade flashed. The badge clattered across planks, cloven in twain. Soldiers reached for swords, but Wyman Manderley's knights advanced with harpoons and poleaxes, teeth bared like their sigil mermen. Onlookers shouted, "For Aegon!" The taxman fled, and by dusk the harbor's cranes flew banners of the 3-headed wolf dragon concocted by a drunken painter who melded Stark direwolf with Targaryen dragon. The first flag of a new rebellion. Ravens carried news overnight. In the turbulent shivering sea, fishing crews painted dragon wolves on their sails. In Seaguard, Lord Davos' smuggler cousins hauled black sails from dusty chests. In the Kingswood, brigands cut royal patrols and left scrolls nailed to trees. Heed the blood of the North and the fire of the South. Long live Aegon. Ben Darrowand. The Council of Six, Tyrion's creation to aid Bran, shrank daily as lords slipped away. Gendry departed for Storm's End. Yara Greyjoy sailed for Pike, to keep the seas honest, though Tyrion suspected she sought whichever king paid more iron price. Only Brienne and Davos stayed, bound by loyalty to the dead. Brienne to Catelyn's memory, Davos to Jon's. Samwell, still in the Red Keep library, woke each day fearing an axeman. Yet no guards came. Perhaps Bran interceded. Perhaps chaos had no time for librarians. He helped package the final shipments, then carried his personal copy to the Blackwater quay. There he met Gilly and boarded a modest skiff, bound for Old Town. I'm going home, he told her, meaning Horn Hill, yet knowing nowhere was home now. Gilly brushed his cheek. Where you walk, we follow, she said simply. Jon reached Castle Black under a foreboding sky, snow mingling with cinder-scented wind from the south. The ancient stones no longer rang with shield drills. Spare brothers, old men and green lads, sat at tables carving wooden dice, waiting for a purpose. When Jon strode through the yard, torches lowered in salute. He found the new Lord Commander, Sir Jeremy Riker, in the war room. I have come only for passage south, Jon said. No vow broken. Riker studied him. You ride with wildlings. Some call them foes still. They ride with me, Jon answered. Riker considered, then nodded. The wall defends the living. If you seek to keep realms living, pass freely. Jon pressed a grateful hand. At the gate, a brother offered him a fresh black cloak. He refused. He wore plain leathers, the direwolf pin Sansa had given him glinting at his collar. Ghost trotted ahead, tail flicking frost dust. They descended the King's Road through still-leaf forests and fields greening for spring. Every village they passed fell silent, then erupted in cheers or prayers. Jon's cheeks flushed under his beard. One night he asked Tormund, "How do you bear men naming you Giant's Bane?" "Better than naming me liar," Tormund chuckled. "Stop fretting. They need something bigger than themselves. Be it, or they'll carve monsters instead." Jon stared into the fire. "I swore never to wear a crown." Tormund scratched his beard. "Crowns aren't the heavy part. Keeping heads beneath them. That's the weight." Now, deep within King's Landing, a secret meeting convened in Baelor's Sept remnants, ruined by dragonfire, yet offering hidden alcoves. Sir Brienne led the way, sword unsheathed. Tyrion arrived last, cloak hooting his face. Candles ringed a cracked marble floor. There stood Samwell Tarly, cheeks sallow, parchment bundle clutched. Tyrion took him aside. "Do you mean for the city to burn again?" Sam's eyes glimmered. "No, I mean for it to live honest." "Honesty kills," Tyrion hissed. "I've buried sisters under honest steel. And lies do no killing," Sam challenged softly. "Every war I've seen was nursed on lies." Tyrion exhaled. "Too late, regardless. The wildfire's lit." He turned to Brienne. "If Jon enters the city, half will kneel, half will riot. We must clear the path to the throne or bar it entirely." Brienne answered, "We vowed to protect the realm. If that means guiding rightful rule, we guide it. If Jon refuses the crown, then chaos wins." Tyrion rubbed scarred brow. "I hope he wants it as little as I expect. Desire for rule is poorest qualification, yet reluctance alone cannot save us. Bran offers no governance. The realm senses the hollow seat." He looked at Sam. "Pray your friend is wiser than we deserve." On Dragonstone's black cliffs, Melisandre's protégé, a young priestess named Vaela, watched foamy waves smash basalt and whispered, "From salt and smoke a dragon shall rise." She addressed a congregation of orphans, and broken men fled from wars. The prince that was promised did not die, but was buried beneath snow. Now his name is sung again. Aegon Targaryen returns. They lit bonfires visible from ships. Sails tilted toward the flames. In Highgarden's rose gardens, Lady Lysa Meadows parleyed with Sir Willis Tyrell. The crippled heir returned from Bravos after his uncle's fall. Surrounded by red blossoms, they drafted letters pledging the Reach's harvests to Aegon, in exchange for restoring their lands. Peasants starving from drought listened beyond hedgerows and cheered. Grain would move north whether kings allowed or not. Hungry children cared little for parchment crowns. The day Jon crossed the Trident, spring sunlight pierced river mist like lances. At Maidenpool's ruins he met Davos Seaworth astride a gelding. They embraced. "The realm waits," Davos said. "And fears." Jon shook his head. "I'm not its cure." "Maybe not. But you're the truth walking. I've lived long enough to see that truth on 2 legs beats lies on 10,000. They rode on. Every mile south, banners joined them. Bear of Mormont, Sun Spear of Dane, Black Ship of the Iron Isles under a ragged truce Yara offered. Gendry met them outside Bitterbridge with Stormlanders. The host swelled like a river in flood. Yet Jon felt no triumph. He saw farmers leaving plows, young men too thin for mail, girls weaving torn sheets into sigils. They followed with hope, bright as sunrise, and sunrise blinds. At dusk near Bronzegate, Sansa rode into camp surrounded by northern guards. Her red hair caught fire in the last light. Jon dismounted, heart racing. "You should have stayed in Winterfell," he said. "And abandon you to politics?" She managed a wry smile. "I see the wolf riding the dragon. Careful he isn't eaten." Jon led her to his tent. They spoke through the night, of Queen Bran's paralysis, of riots in Gulltown, of Arya hunting threads in the Riverlands. Sansa urged caution. "Take the throne only if forced. Offer Bran a council with you at its head. Rule through compromise." Jon rubbed tired eyes. "Compromise built this confusion. I want peace." Sansa clasped his hands. "Then forge it, or others will forge chains." Beyond the canvas, Ghost howled. The host answered with cheers that sent tremors across the King's Road. Dawn would march them to the capital. Tyrion stood atop the Gate of the Gods as the rebel host approached. Memories churned. Stannis' shadow fleet, Daenerys' eager legions. War always returned. Brienne beside him raised a white banner stitched hastily with direwolf and lion crossing swords, symbol of ceasefire. Behind the walls, small folk gathered baskets of stones and bouquets of winter roses. Trumpets sounded. Jon Snow rode at the van, unhelmed, hair loose. He reined at Arrow's Edge. Tyrion descended, gate creaking open. They met between lines, ground trampled to dust. Tyrion bowed shallowly. "Your Grace?" "Don't." Jon sighed. "Then, Jon." Tyrion's voice softened. "Bran waits in the throne room. He will abdicate if you demand." Jon's eyes flicked to ramparts, where archers waited uncertain. "And if I refuse?" "Chaos. The realm splits. Already 3 kings rise. A Riverlord crowned in Riverrun, a Sell-Sail king on Pike, and a zealot on Dragonstone. Your refusal gives them cause to war. But your acceptance births resentment. Choose a poison." Jon closed his eyes. When he opened them, he saw Davos, Sansa, Tormund, thousands of faces lit with trust. "I will speak with Bran. Alone. No blades." Tyrion nodded. "As you wish." They walked through the shattered city, where blackened stones still bore dragon scorch. People lined streets. Some kneeling, some spitting. A woman thrust a rose. Jon took it, tucking it into belt. Children trailed Ghost with giggles. The throne room's doors loomed, the broken pillars repaired in haste. On the Iron Throne, Bran sat like carved winter. Snowflake motes drifted from high windows, though spring raged outside. Tyrion remained at the threshold. Jon advanced alone, footfalls echoing. "Brother," Jon greeted. "Cousin," Bran corrected, voice mild as water. "Yet still brother." Jon swallowed. "You know why I'm here. I've seen every thread. Some end in your death, some in mine. Most in war unfathomable. One path avoids the worst." Jon waited. "Rule together," Bran said. "You among the living. I among memory. Let me keep the past while you shepherd the day. Crown or no crown, the realm needs both." Jon's breath escaped in a shudder. Relief. Fear? Outside, cheers lifted, then hushed. 2 kings. Bran's lips curved. A king and a keeper. The world remembers stories, not owners. Wear the crown if they force it, but govern with counsel. Sansa for the north, Gendry for the Stormlands, Yara for the Isles, the Tyrell boy for the Reach. And Sam as hand of the king. Then Jon almost laughed. Sam would faint on that throne. Better a hand that trembles from care than one steady for cruelty. Bran's eyes glazed, seeing years ahead. Agree, and the storm breaks upon still water. Refuse, and wildfire returns. Jon approached the throne, iron swords twisted like wings. He touched none. He bent knee, not to Bran, but to an idea. I accept. Bran raised a pale hand. Rise, Aegon Targaryen, sixth of your name, king of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men. If you wish the titles, or simply Jon Snow, chosen by truth. He beckoned. Now let us mend what lies tore. That evening, the Red Keep's balconies glowed with lamplight, as heralds announced a dual stewardship. King Jon of House Targaryen Stark crowned next dawn, and King Bran the Broken retained as Lord Keeper of the Realm, a new office second only to the throne. Samwell Tarly, stunned, was named Hand. Gilly beamed. Tyrion surrendered his brooch without bitterness, whispering to Sam, "Wear it lightly. It crushes heavy hearts." Crowds in the streets heard the proclamation. Some cheered, others muttered. But when Jon stepped onto the high balcony, ghost at heel, a hush settled. He spoke plainly. "I never sought crown or song. I am no dragon lord atop a spire, nor a wolf behind high walls. I am the shield the realm raised when winter darkened. Twice I have seen kingdoms fall to pride. I will not be the third. I ask you stand with me, not beneath me. Let each land keep its voice, each faith its prayer. Let the north be north, the reach be reach, the isles free to sail, the deserts free to burn, yet together when darkness comes. Mender." He drew Longclaw, point down, and drove it into the stone rail. Sparks leapt. This sword once guarded the realms of men. Now it guards promise. If I break oath, let any take it up against me. Silence, then thunderous cry. "King Aegon! King Jon! King Snow!" The names tangled, yet all meant one vow. Hope. Somewhere below, thieves plotted. Lords seethed. Sparrows prayed. Revolt did not vanish. Ambition never sleeps. But for that night, torches burned without malice, and bells rang not of war, but of wonder. Samwell stood beside the new hand's dais, looking down at ink-stained fingers. Gilly squeezed his palm. He realized the book he authored had not ended a story, it had opened one. History flowed like the black water under moonrise, dark, restless, and forever moving. Yet within its current glimmered ripples of light born from a fat boy who loved to read. High above, Bran watched with eyes like open skies, seeing far past the night into dawns yet unwritten. And in the quiet between heartbeats, he murmured to the weirwood sapling, "Seeds take root in storm," and the leaves shivered as though understanding. Far beyond the narrow sea, in the ruin of Valyria, a lone dragon circled broken spires, feeling some tremor travel on the air. The beast's roar cracked silence like prophecy. Across oceans, men and women lifted faces to red dawn, hearing echoes they did not name, but would one day call destiny. And so the realm, balanced between ice and fire, stepped into mourning. Uncertain, unbowed, unbroken, led not by a perfect king, but by an honest one. Kai. Oh. The dawn after Jon's promise found King's Landing hushed beneath a rare veil of coastal fog, every stone seeming to hold its breath, as if afraid to disturb the fragile alignment of peace. The air tasted of damp ash and myrtle. Birdsong fled before it. High above, the new banners, direwolf merged with dragon, hung limp from the Red Keep's battlements, their silk heavy with dew. Jon arose from a brief, dream-troubled sleep, already wearing the crown in all but metal. A circlet of dark steel, forged from a melted link of one of the wall's ancient chains, rested on a table near his bed, untouched. He stared at it while lacing his boots, then turned away, feeling that a crown too soon donned could never again be taken off. He found Samwell Tarly waiting in the council chamber, quills set in tidy rows beside a steaming pot of nettle tea that smelled faintly of freshly turned earth. The room had been Tyrion's domain once. Now the dwarf's clever clutter was gone, replaced by Sam's severe order. John glanced at the seals pressed in red wax along a stack of unopened ravens. Each bore a different sigil. The sun spear of Dorne, the trident of Riverrun, the gilded rose of Highgarden, the high tower of Old Town chiseled in miniature detail. Messages from every corner of what was left of the Seven Kingdoms, or what hoped to be seven still. Anything that cannot wait? John asked, voice thin from lack of sleep. Sam adjusted his spectacles. All of it can wait until you've eaten. I've sent for bread and soft cheese. Ben? I've no hunger this morning. Then eat for the realm that must endure upon your strength. The tone was gentle but resolute. Sam had grown steel beneath his rings of knowledge. John yielded, seating himself at the long oaken table, just as a shy kitchen boy arrived with a tray. The boy's eyes, round as moons, locked on Joan's face, and a stammered, Your grace, escaped before he fled. John tore half a loaf, chewed, and tasted nothing. Sam broke the seal of the first raven. From Sunspear.c. Prince Coren Nemeros Martell congratulates you on peaceful succession and invites royal envoys to discuss Salt Road tariffs. He opened a second. The Riverlands request permission to raise levies against raiders, sailing down the Trident under a black kraken sigil stitched with a scarlet eye. That will be Euron's bastard nephew Christopher, if rumor proves true. A third. Lady Lysa Meadows pledges Highgarden's harvests on condition the crown repeals the grain tithe imposed during Queen Cersei's last year. John rubbed his brow. We cannot repeal every tax at once. The treasury is empty. Now. Tyrion left a modest reserve. Sam hesitated. But we may need loans from the Iron Bank. They prefer kings who stand secure upon their thrones. John managed the ghost of a smile. Secure. That would be nice. He reached for another letter and paused as a familiar sigil caught his eye, a white weirwood branch on gray. He slid it open. Sansa's neat script flowed like river ice. Dawn. A northern peace holds, but only because I've chained rumors with force of will. Carhold, Deepwood Motte, and even White Harbor now fly the wolf dragon beside the direwolf. They say one king in Winterfell is less confusing than two south of the neck. If you mean to keep this fragile realm, you must show a united front. The small folk care nothing for clever governance. Only for grain in spring and safety at night. Deliver both, and they will forgive you anything. A queen in truth or name may help. Think on it. Sansa. John folded it slowly, aware of Sam's curious glance. He slid the parchment across the table. She counsels unity through marriage. Sam's eyebrows rose. Royal matches avert wars as often as they start them. Who would she suggest? Nendam Chao. I fear the suggestion is me. A wry breath. And I have no taste for such binds. Neither did Maester Aemon, yet he loved the realm in his own way. But that choice is yours, and hers, whoever she may be. Before John could answer, Brienne of Tarth strode into the chamber. Her polished steel shone pewter in fog-filtered light. She bowed, fist over heart. Scouts returned mid-watch. The zealot host from Dragonstone has crossed the Blackwater on fishing skiffs. They camp in the Kingswood 2 leagues south, led by the Red Priestess Vaela. Now. Joan's stomach clenched around bread. Numbers. 3,000, perhaps 4. Mostly common folk with pitchforks, though I counted at least 100 Sellswords out of Volantis. Their prophet claims you are Azor Ahai returned, destined to lead them by sword of living fire. I have no such sword. Brienne's mouth curved toward irony. Truth rarely slows prophecy. She unslung a rolled banner, scarlet silk bearing a black sunburst crowned by 3 dragon heads ablaze. They call themselves the Dawn Flame. Sam straightened. If we meet them with blades, martyrdom strengthens their cause. But if we do nothing, they may march on the city and provoke riot. A third path. Bring their prophet to me, John said at last. No blood, if it can be helped. Words forged Sam's book. Perhaps words can quench this fire. Brienne saluted and turned on heel. As she left, Sam murmured, a risky wager. All wagers are risk now. Fetch Davos, Gendry, and Maester Walken. We'll need counsel on rations. An army, zealot or not, cannot camp in the Kingswood without straining us. The parley ground was chosen at a ruined sept half swallowed by vines, where white marble saints lay broken among ivy. Jon rode out beneath a banner of truce, Ghost pacing beside his horse, hackles high. Brienne, Podrick, and a dozen white-cloaked honor guards followed. Across the cracked flagstones stood Valella, hair the hue of new-spilled blood, eyes dark as garnet. She wore simple crimson robes, yet her presence crackled like dry leaves near flame. Around her milled farmers, gripping reaping hooks, barefoot children clutching wooden dragon toys painted gold, sellswords with mismatched mail. They watched Jon approach with awe so dense it felt suffocating. Vaella's lips curved. Azor, Ahai. Her voice quivered like a plucked harp. The Lord of Light burned a path through shadow to return you to us. At sunrise we march to your gates so you may lead us east, where darkness quickens again. Jon dismounted. Darkness exists everywhere men forget compassion. But fire alone doesn't chase every shadow. Benandi. The prince that was promised shall wield Lightbringer, born of fire and blood. She extended a knife. Shall we forge it here? My heart for your blade. She bared her breast, pale in morning gloom. Gasps rippled through her followers. Jon stepped back, horror etching his face. Put that knife away. Vaella's eyes glittered with fervor. Then let me cut you. Your blood will anoint the weapon. Prophecy demands sacrifice. Brienne's hand drifted toward her sword. Jon lifted a quieting palm. Prophecy once burned a little girl alive in a snowstorm, and it did not save her king. He met Vaella's gaze without flinching. I broke that king's watchfire myself, and I'll break any that seeks another child's screams. The priestess trembled. A fissure of doubt flashed in her eyes. Jon continued, voice low, steady. If your God wishes sacrifice, let him take me when he will. But while I breathe, I forbid slaughter in my name. Go back to Dragonstone. Lay aside blades. There are forges needing hammer, fields needing hands. Work, and you serve life. Kill, and you serve only dust. Dine. Somewhere in the crowd a child began to cry. Thin, frightened keening. A farmer glanced at his rusted pike, then lowered it. Others followed, weapons dropping on stone. The sellswords exchanged uneasy shrugs. Zealots did not pay well when told to sow crops. Only Valella remained rigid. At last she spoke, voice cracked. If you spurn Lightbringer, winter will devour all. Jon drew Longclaw. Sunlight slid along its Valyrian steel, blue ripples dancing like quiet sea. He drove the blade point down into shattered sept floor, echo of his gesture on the balcony. This sword guards lives. If winter comes again, it will find me waiting. But it will not find me murdering the innocent in pretense of salvation. Silence deepened until even birds held tongues. Vaella's shoulders sagged. The knife clattered. Tears streaked her cheeks, red paint bleeding on pale skin. Brienne moved, swift yet gentle, and caught the priestess as her knees buckled. Jon turned to the watchers. Return home. The crown will grant seed grain, iron shovels, and remission of last year's war levies. Your children's bellies will be filled faster by plow than by prophecy. Then they parted before him in hushed reverence as he walked back to his horse. Ghost followed, tail low, but relaxed. The dawn flame fizzled to embers. The victory felt hollow as parchment, yet news of bloodless dispersal spread like sweet wine. In flea-bottom taverns, small folk toasted the king who spared zealots. Fishermen repeated tales to passing traders, who carried them upriver. The realm's temper cooled a notch, though fire still smoldered elsewhere. Jon's next trial rose from sea spray and gull cries. Yara Greyjoy's black-hulled flagship, the Asha, anchored in Blackwater Bay bearing a demand for audience. Yara strode into the council chamber with salt-matted braids and the swagger of one born to raid, not to bargain. She tossed a damp scroll on the table. Euron's bastards raid my isles, claim pike while I'm here playing diplomat. I need ships and men. Jon leaned forward. Supply ships will strain our coffers. What would the Isles offer in return? Yara smirked. 10% of every cargo unloaded at Lannisport and Old Town for 10 years, plus loyal sales if your enemies come by sea. Sam's quill scratched notes. A rich promise, yet enforcement tricky amid Ironborn culture. Yara planted both palms. Culture you change with gold. Gold buys captains' oaths. Give me loans, I'll buy their blades, and a king who backs me wins untaxed fish for hungry mainlanders. Gendry Baratheon, seated to Jon's right, frowned. Fish spoil before they cross the reach unless salted. Still, Storm's End always needs cod. Jon considered. The treasury cannot spare gold, but the crown holds grain surplus after the Reach tithe repeal. Grain buys loyalty too. He met Yara's flinty gaze. 10,000 bushels delivered to Pike's poorest villages each harvest for 5 years, in exchange for a joint fleet under a shared banner. Ironborn captains keep plunder rights beyond Westerosi coasts, but raids against crown subjects cease. Violate it once, the alliance dies. Yara chewed the inside of her cheek, then extended an arm. Done. They clasped forearms. Ghost, lying by the hearth, huffed approval. Yet not all lords embraced such diplomacy. 2 evenings later, ravens arrived from River Run. Lord Edmure Tully, injured, possibly poisoned. A sellsword band called the Riverlight had taken Harrenhal, crowning their captain, Sir Larys Pyre, King of the Trident. He styled himself a champion of small folk against northern usurpers. Worse, reports hinted at gold flowing east to him from Bravos. Perhaps Iron Bank interests seeking fractures they could mortgage. The council argued long past Candlegutter. Sam urged swift but cautious action. Siege Harrenhal before Pyre's hold deepens. Gendry volunteered Stormlander levies. Davos proposed river transport. Brienne offered her household knights. Jon listened, then shook his head. Winterfell cannot spare many spears. Roads still thaw. Storm's End must guard coasts. We risk scattering strength. He turned to Podrick Payne, newly knighted, but famed for logistic acumen. Ride to River Run. Confirm Edmure's condition, gauge Pyre's support. If smallfolk back him from hunger, we answer with grain, not swords. Podrick flushed with determination. Yes, your grace. He departed before dawn. While armies and alliances churned south, Sansa Stark ruled the north with cool resolve. Yet, peace proved brittle. A letter from Carhold reported wolves slaughtering sheep. Farmers whispered of direwolves tamed by ghosts. An omen of Jon's claim. Sansa rode to Carhold herself, taking Maester Roderick and Lady Alice Karstark. They found starving shepherds, fields shriveled by late frost. Sansa ordered stores opened and taught villagers to tan pelts into saleable furs. She left behind copper coin minted with the wolf dragon, explaining its worth would hold under her brother's reign. When she rode away, the coins clinked like tiny choruses praising unity. But union frayed deep in the woods where shadows longer than their trees birthed old fears. A sect of hill clans, led by a warrior called Stonebear, refused royal coin, chanting veneration of the true wolf who walks alone. They rejected Southron compromise, and night fires burned with stolen banners. Sansa dispatched rangers to monitor, but not engage. If blood spilled, prophecy's echo might rally more. Instead, she invited Stonebear to Winterfell's harvest feast beneath Weirwood Fett. He arrived wary, face painted with ash. Sansa greeted him, not as queen but sister of the soil, speaking of winters endured and storms survived. She placed wolf dragon coin in his palm, overlaid it with plain iron, 2 faces, 1 metal, like north and south. When he closed fingers, iron left imprint on skin, symbol seared hotter than rhetoric. Stonebear bent knee, allegiance pledged. In King's Landing, Bran kept silent vigil beneath the weirwood sapling whose roots now penetrated Red Keep foundations. He sat for hours unmoving, eyes milk with thought, his role as lorekeeper consuming more spirit than flesh. Tyrion, freed of office yet unable to abandon habit, visited often. One twilight he found Bran alone. Even the guards had slipped out. unnerved by whispers the tree offered at dusk. Tyrion cleared his throat. "Your Grace Keeper." Titles felt slippery now. "You said the realm would choose. I fear it chooses division." Bran's gaze drifted to window where dusk painted clouds violet. "Division fertilizes growth when pruned. All things seek balance." "Spare me riddles. Your brother, cousin, is drowning in petitions and uprisings. If you see paths to guide him, say so." Bran's voice, distant as wind in crypt, answered, "Guidance belongs to living wills, not trapped visions. Tell Aegon, I dreamt of wings darkening Valyria's ruins. Fire yet sleeps beneath stone. When it wakes, the mettle of kings will be tested." He blinked, suddenly mortal again. "Remind him steel is forged, not born." Tyrion rubbed brow. "A prophecy to solve another prophecy. You and the Red Woman would share tea." Bran's lips curled faintly. "Tell Sam, when the time is right, he must return the book to its birthplace. Only then does ink become root." Tyrion considered retort, but Bran's gaze glazed once more. He left, unsure whether he had conversed with a boy, a seer, or merely echoes in a tree. Word from Podrick arrived a fortnight later. Harrenhal bristled with militia armed in Braavosi style, but morale wavered. Pyre's promise of fair law drew peasants, yet his rule taxed grain heavy to pay mercenaries. Edmure recovered, sheltered at River Run under Lady Roslyn's watch. He begged crown aid but feared massacre if royal soldiers marched. Jon summoned council and weighed options. Davos argued blockade by river to starve Pyre. Gendry favored swift assault to decapitate revolt. Sam urged diplomacy. Offer Pyre legitimacy as Trident's guardian if he bends knee. The debate nodded into night. At last, Jon spoke. "A king who lives by sword invites swords against his people. We try words first. I will ride to Harrenhal." Shocked silence greeted him. Sam blurted, "Your Grace, that castle is a curse. Every king who seeks it perishes or loses cause. Now, Aegon the Conqueror took it," Jon noted dryly. "I carry his name." He met Brienne's worried eyes. "I will not hide behind walls while others bleed." Preparations began at once. Sansa sent Karstark riders and Mormont scouts to meet him at Maidenpool. Yara promised 3 longships to patrol the God's Eye. Vaela, now housed quietly in the Sept of the Seven, requested leave to accompany the king, to atone and show the Lord of Light's mercy through healing. Sam vouched for her contrite devotion. Jon agreed, cautioning she carry no blades. One crisp dawn, Jon departed the city at head of a compact host. 400 northern spears under Alice Karstark, 200 Stormlanders, a sept of maesters with grain carts, Vaela's small Lightbringer hospice, and Ghost loping free. Banners streamed. Wolf Dragon, Sun Stag, Hearth Tree, Kraken quartered with crown. Citizens watched in uneasy admiration. Some shouted blessings, others flung curses that reeked of fear. As the host wound along the Roserwad, Jon sensed weight lifting, decisions narrowed to boots on dirt, horizon honest. He rode beside Sam, who kept a ledger of supplies and casualties. So far, only one mule's lost shoe. Vaela tended blistered feet, murmuring prayers that comforted even unbelievers. Gendry remained in capital to forge plows from melted weapons, fulfilling Jon's vow. Sansa governed Northern Council by Raven. Bran watched futures unfold like petals. They reached Harrenhal's blasted shadow under a sky bruised by roiling thunderheads. Flames once forged by Balerion, the Black Dread, had melted towers into grotesque shapes, yet new walls of timber and earthworks ringed the ruin. Pyre's black banners flew, a blazing sword on Orangefield, a sneer at Lightbringer myth. Jon halted just beyond arrow range. A messenger rode forth under ragged truce. "My Lord Pyre grants audience in his courtyard at sunset, unarmed." Jon nodded. "Tell him I will come with 2 companions, Maester Samwell and Lady Vaela." Sam swallowed. "Perhaps take Brienne." Jon squeezed his shoulder. "Your courage is steel enough. They entered as sun bled down behind twisted ramparts, turning melted stone crimson. Harrenhal's courtyard teemed with rabble soldiers, brows shining with sweat and suspicion. Atop a ruined archway stood Larry's pyre, pale-haired, slender as a drawn rapier. His eyes sparkled with sly derision. "Behold the crowned bastard," Pyre called. "Have you come to kneel or to burn?" Jon removed his cloak, folded it, laid it on a broken anvil. He advanced until only 10 paces separated them. "I come to offer peace." Pyre laughed. "Peace? A dragon offers peace as a viper offers milk." His voice carried an orator's flair, and the crowd stirred. "You stand upon bones of lords who sought peace with monsters. I will not join them." Sam stepped forward. "Lord Pyre, the crown will grant charter to rule the Trident's levies, so long as you swear fealty and lower unlawful taxes." Pyre's gaze shifted to Sam with disdain. "A maester speaks of taxes. Tell me. Tell me, fat quill pusher, did your book mentions peasants rotting after wars waged by kings?" Jon's voice cut the rising murmur. "A charter means roads rebuilt, mills restored. Your folk toil for sellswords now. Now. They toil for a dream. Freedom from highborn crush." Pyre drew a slim dagger, brandished it skyward. "I cast down chains forged by Stark and Targaryen alike." The crowd roared. Arrows knocked along parapets. Jon felt ghosts snarl beyond gates. He breathed slow, recalling nights on the wall when silence kept dread at bay. He lifted hands. "If you fear crowns, take mine." He removed the dark steel circlet from belt pouch. Had not worn it, placed it on ground between them. "Melt it, fling it into God's eye. But feed your people. End this before graves multiply." "Bentor." Pyre stared, dagger wavering. Thunder rolled. Lightning cracked, illuminating the circlet like coal ember. For a moment, uncertainty fluttered across Pyre's face. Then a crossbow twanged from rampart. The bolt hissed toward Jon. Vaela sprang, shoving him aside. Bolt pierced her shoulder. She fell, crimson flooding robe. Chaos erupted. Soldiers shouted. Arrows loosed. Wolves howled. Jon dragged Valela behind masonry. Sam pressed cloth to wound, frantic. Pyre shouted for archers to cease. Too late. Stormlander horns blared outside walls. Brienne's force surged through gate with shield wall, pushing peasants back without killing where possible. But volleys flew lethal. Jon hefted Longclaw, parrying a charging pikeman, flat of blade knocking man senseless. He roared, "Stand down!" His voice echoed like iron drum. Some paused, but others, fueled by fear, pressed. A sudden whoosh exploded overhead. All eyes turned skyward. Out of boiling storm cloud dived a dragon. Not Drogon, but smaller, scales obsidian-streaked gold, wingspan vast enough to cast night over courtyard. Its roar shattered courage. Soldiers scattered. Archers dropped bows. The beast back-winged above the melted tower of dread, showering sparks of ember breath that hissed but did not ignite. Warning fire. Jon's pulse hammered. Bran's vision of wings darkening Valyria flashed in his mind. The dragon circled once, then landed atop a jagged tower. Talons screeching on stone. Upon its neck clung a rider clad in ragged cloak of pale gray. As lightning flared, the cloak fell. Arya Stark, hair whipped wild, eyes bright with wind. She raised a hand at Jon, half greeting, half dare. Gasps rose from soldiers and small folk alike. Stories birthed instantly. Wolf girl riding shadow flame. Jon sized the moment. He stepped into open yard, Longclaw lowered. "The world has changed," he called. "Old oaths, old fears crumble. War will feed no one. Fire will scorch wheat with chaff. Choose now, rebuild with us or face a new age alone and broken." Silence held, taut as drawn string. Pyre's dagger arm fell. He looked at Dragon, at circlets still glittering under stormlight, at peasants shrinking behind barrels. Slowly, He knelt. One by one, others followed, pikes dropping, shields tipping like dying moons. Rain began to fall, hissing on hot dragonhide, washing blood in thin pink rivulets toward cracked drains once cut for kings. Jon lifted circlet but did not place it on brow. He walked to pyre, extended hand. Rise, Lord Protector of the Trident, sworn to crown and peace. Pyre's fingers trembled as they clasped. His eyes shone with unshed tears. Relief or regret, Jon could not tell. Behind them, Arya dismounted agile down rubble slope, dragon watching with curious tilt of horned head. She approached Valyria, who still bled though Sam's pressure slowed crimson. Arya knelt, pressed cloth torn from her own sleeve. Hold on, priestess. Shadow's done with you tonight. Valyria's lips moved, forming one word. Light. Rain fizzed on wound like balm. That night, fires flickered gentle across Harrenhal's court. Tents sprang for wounded. Joan's grain wagons rolled in. Village elders filed past, receiving sacks of oats and barley. Pyre drafted decree lowering tax to fair tithe. His cell's words, promise crown pardon and coin for road repair, swore to trade steel for spade. Jon and Sam sat in half-collapsed great hall, sipping watered wine, exhaustion cloaking them. Arya joined, wolfish grin fading to earnest warmth. Found an egg in a smoking sea cave, she said, matter of fact. Thought you might need leverage. Sam choked on wine. You hatched a dragon? Dragon hatched itself. I just persuaded it I was friend. Her gray eyes gleamed mischief. Name's Shade. Jon shook head, both amused and awed. Shade may change everything. Everything already changed, she replied, leaning back against shattered hearth. Flames danced in her eyes, reflecting possibilities uncounted. Thunder rumbled distant, storms spinning rage eastward. Within walls once forged by cruelty and melted by conquest, men and women labored side by side. Karstark rangers sharing salted cod with river peasants, maesters mending sellswards, children laughing at ghost, chasing Shade's tail flick through drizzle. Perhaps tomorrow new quarrels would spark. Such is the nature of human hearts. But tonight walls that had witnessed endless suffering cradled a fragile ceasefire. Bound by resolve of those who believed the realm could choose compassion. Jon walked the battlements before dawn. Clouds broke, revealing sliver of bruised violet melting into gold. Shade roosted on a scorched parapet, wings tucked, eyes half-lidded. Ghost sat below, ears pricked. The king stood between wolf and dragon as horizon birthed day, and though weight still pressed shoulders, hope breathed in cool air. He slid circlet onto head, not a shackle, but reminder. Metal felt neither heavy nor light, it simply existed, same as duty. In far-off Pentos, iron bank ledgers adjusted to new treaties. In Old Town, scholars debated dragon return. In Pike, Yara's ships loaded grain. In Winterfell, Sansa smiled at Raven news. Harrenhal pacified. New dragon hatched. Send northern healers. She penned reply. Proud of you, little brother. The realm at last begins to mend. Bran, beneath Red Keep's weirwood, opened eyes to sunrise and whispered to leaves. Steel is forged. Word becomes root. Somewhere in an ancient crypt memory, the old gods rustled agreement. The first rays lit Harrenhal's twisted towers, making molten shadows dance. Beneath that glow, king, dragon, and direwolf watched a land once forged in conquest start, at long last, to reforge itself in mercy. Eden? Rain churned the churned-up bailey of Harrenhal to pitted mud before dawn, but by mid-morning the clouds split like old chain mail, and a hard, bright sun poured down, gilding every pool of water and turning the castle's warped towers into glinting black blades. Jon watched masons lever a cracked lintel back into place where the bolt that felled Valyria had scored the wall. On scaffolds above, Karstark's spearmen hauled up fresh oak beams for walkways, singing a northern marching song whose chorus ended on a wolf-long howl. Nothing here stirred without echoes of the past. So many kings had tried to tame this vast corpse of stone, but for the first time in living memory, the wind carried laughter instead of screams. Vaela slept in the infirmary under a sheen of fever, but the maester said the bolt had missed her lung by a finger's width. She would live. Sam sat by her cot reading passages from his own book, voice scarcely above the rustle of the turning leaves, and the red priestess mouthed the words in her dreams, as though learning an incantation that might weave her wound shut from within. Arya vanished again with the dawn, leaving only the thunder of shades departing wings and a charcoal spiral scrawled on a slate tile outside Joan's chamber. West of the God's Eye, broken men hunt children, wolf will run that ground. She had never been one for goodbyes, nor explanations. Jon trusted she would return when she had carved her own answer from whatever darkness prowled that stretch of riverlands. By noon he convened council in what remained of Harrenhal's great hall. A long nave crooked by heat melt, roof half open to sky, ivy spilling down pillars that once bore banners of House Coharies, House Strong, House Lothston. Pyre had ceded the high seat to Jon for the meeting, but took a place at the king's right, steel cap doffed, linen bandage binding his brow where debris had grazed him during the skirmish. Brienne Davos Gendry returned from King's Landing overnight. Alice Karstark and a thin young maester from Old Town named Williman formed the ring. Sam arrived last, smelling of comfrey and lamp oil, cheeks blanched from the sickroom vigil. Yet his eyes burned clear when he unrolled new ravens on the table. "Two matters demand our answer," he began. "First, the Iron Bank of Braavos has frozen all crown accounts pending assurance. Our loans will be honored. They wish a delegation, immediately. Second, Prince Corran of Dorne repeats his invitation and hints that if we delay, the stepstones may fall under Triarch occupation with Dornish assistance. In plainer words, pay him court or see him side with the Triarchy." "Nenterwander, bloodless steel," Davos muttered. "The Bravosi mean to bleed us coin through the throat instead of a blade in the ribs." Pyre shifted uneasily. "The Riverlight relied on a Bravosi purse. If the bank cuts its coin now, my old sellswords will riot. They think their pay guaranteed." "And on that?" Jon studied the rough map painted on a slab of oiled calfskin, the one Pyre had used for his rebel council. A red X marked every mill burned by Clegane raiders years ago, every bridge washed away by storm or sabotage. The Iron Bank counts roads by interest. Lend them stone and timber, they will lend gold. Gendry scratched his beard. "Stone, I can't forge, but river barges, iron nails, wheel rims, aye. Give me charcoal and smelters, I'll give you bridges." Sam half smiled. "The bank will still want figures, so will Dorne." Jon nodded. "We'll split our strength." "Sam, Davos, Brienne. You sail to Braavos in the Morning Star. Show the Iron Bank the charter for a joint fleet with Yara. Offer a share in Stepstone's tolls when we drive out Tyroshi pirates. Take Pyre. Let them see a rebel sworn to crown rather than coin." Pyre's jaw tightened, but he offered a curt nod. "If it ends bloodshed, I'll play penitent." "Gendry and Alice ride south to Sunspear," Jon continued. "Carry letters ratifying Dorne's right to police slave traffic through the Broken Arm, so long as no chains cross our shore. Remind Prince Corran that free princes stand taller beside free kings than beneath free companies." Elias's gray eyes glinted. "And if they still lean to the Triarchy, then invite Corran to prove Dornish steel worth more than Lyseni promises. I'll send 4 of Shade Scales as token, dragon proof that only the prince who sides with us may claim." That surprised even Brienne. "You would take scales from your sister's dragon?" "They shed like feathers after flight. Arya left a trove on the battlements, more valuable than gold to a realm that remembers wildfire. Plans laid, they broke." Gendry remained, hammer shoulders stiff. "Begging your pardon, your Jon," he said once they were alone. "You send others to Court and Bank, but where will you be? Birds speak of storms in Valyria again. Sailors swear the sea smokes along the smoking shore. shadows with wings big as castles. Bran's dreams point east. Jon thought of Bran beneath the white tree, whispering wings darkening Valyria. A chill moved along his spine though sunlight warmed the hall. Shade is young. A journey that far could kill him and Arya both. But the realm whispers of dragons waking. They'll believe the stories whether Shade lives or dies. Better we know the truth than choke on rumor. Ben? Jon gripped Longclaw's pommel, feeling the stone wolf head warm beneath his palm. If dragons breed anew, they threaten every city of man. We should see it with our own eyes. He turned to Sam near the doorway. Valyria was birthplace to the conqueror blood. Perhaps your book should return there, not Old Town. Sam's brow furrowed. Books fear salt air and ash. But perhaps one copy should sail east. Not one, Jon said. The master copy. If we mean truth to root in soil, plant it where the fire began. Menshawakal. 2 days later, the Morning Star dropped sail at Maidenpool's harbor mouth, masts swaying under gull-raucous sky. Davos inspected the deck lines, while Sam secured a wrapped cylinder of vellum pages inside an ironwood chest, trimmed with wax-sealed tin to ward spray. Pyre came aboard in plain brown cloak. No sigils, no sword, only a ledger of names of the sellswards he had left behind with pay due. Brienne wore no cloak at all. Her white painted plate was uniform enough. Before the gangplank lifted, Jon clasped Davos' arm. Sail swift. If Bravos closes purse strings, we cannot fund grain next winter. Bring them reason. Davos chuckled ruefully. Bankers and reason part ways when coins stutter. We'll manage. He glanced at Brienne and Sam. 7 willing. Will return in a moon's turn. Sam tried to smile. Or sooner, if the wind loves books. The plank rose. Lines were cast free. Oars dipped. Jon stood on the quay until the galley's sail dwindled to a pale shard on the blue. That night, Gendry and Alice rode west under Carhold banners, bound for the Boneway passes. Harrenhal's courtyard felt suddenly hollow, its makeshift bustle dispersed to road and river. Jon walked ramparts with Ghost, studying sky where shade no longer soared. The hush let thoughts prowl. Iron Bank threat. Triarchy expansion. Bran's cryptic warnings, and closer to his heart, the North. Sansa's letters praised improved harvest, but each page carried undercurrent of unease. Rumors that Queen Sansa slew a direwolf pup to forge axes, that she meant to crown herself again if the South faltered. Lies grew wild as ivy. He needed to go north soon, reassure with presence rather than ravens. But first, Valyria. 9 days later, Arya returned, wind-burned, leather jerkin scored by claws of flight. Stone Bear's rogue hill clans had been harrying settlements east of Seaguard, she reported, but Shade's arrival scattered them. No children lost. She dismounted at Harrenhal's outer yard, Shade settling with minimal damage, only one collapsed stable roof. Jon greeted her by the charred stairmews. I knew you'd point the blade east, she told him, accepting water from a nervous groom. The dragon wants to taste the old blood. Valyria is death, Jon warned. Everything alive is death once, she answered. Same as when they were children playing with wooden swords in Winterfell's yard. I'll not miss the chance to look into the wound that birthed ours. Jon gathered a small company. Maester Williman for scholarship, Vaela, still weak but healing swiftly. For counsel on fire magic, 10 Mormont archers chosen for quiet courage, and 3 seasoned sailing masters from White Harbor, who swore they had twice skirted Valyrian ruins for obsidian salvage. Shade could not carry them all. They would take the Sea Raven, a stout cog refitted with iron reinforcements against shattered reefs. Arya would fly ahead, scouting weather and smoke vents, roosting on the mast by night. Aelys Karstark returned unexpectedly on the eve of departure, face drawn. Gendry rides for Sunspear still. But we were ambushed on Kingsgrave's plateau. Stepstone cell sails flying Taroshi stripes. They demanded tribute for the prince who comes. We fought them off, but messages spoke of a Lyseni admiral called Seraphon building fleet off Cape Wrath. If Dorne wavers, war on water will come before leaves fall. Da. Jon's jaw tightened. I leave the realm a fortnight, and serpents crawl from every crack. He considered, then placed Aliz in command of Harrenhal's garrison with orders to complete bridge repair across the Trident, vital for any march south or north. Hold this center and hold the river, he told her. If war launches from the stepstones, the Trident will be throat of Westeros. She saluted, knuckles white on spear haft. The sea raven slipped down the black water at sunset, sails catching a blood-red sky. Ghost remained with Sansa. Jon could not risk him on sea, and the absence cut deep. Shade, however, circled overhead, a shadow that drew fearful oaths from fishermen and awe from children along shores. The crew crossed into open narrow sea under a waxing moon and steady eastern wind. Sam had taught Jon to measure leagues by the stars, but this voyage the constellations hid behind drifting ash haze by the fifth sunrise. Birds vanished. The sea glassed into an oily mirror. A sulfur stench seeped from unseen vents. Vaela murmured prayers that sounded older than Erlor's rise, half Valyrian, half something guttural and broken by weeping consonants. Arya perched on the forecastle rail, hair whipped to silver by fine volcanic dust. On the seventh day, shade clouds swallowed sun entirely. The horizon glowed a sickly ember where the smoking shore lay. Dark plumes coiled like war banners. All on deck fell silent, even the rigging creaked softer. Williman unfolded a scarred parchment, drawn from Maester Marwyn's lost journals. "The Doom's bones," he whispered. "No ship ventured further since Lord Corlys." "It takes madness to map hell," Arya said. "Good, we brought plenty." She vaulted to Shade's neck and banked into ash fog, scouting reef breakers. The cog advanced under half sail, oars ready. Jagged black teeth of fused stone jutted where whole peninsulas once thrived. Rivers of molten rock pulsed beyond, painting sky a bleeding orange. Yet amid ruin glimmered towers. Impossible towers, sheathed in glass and gold, half melted but still grand, like swords thrust up by buried giants. Anchoring in a cove of relative calm, Jon led a landing party across a shore of obsidian shards. Sand hissed beneath boots. Each footfall released tiny vapors. Vaela bore a copper lantern whose flame burned green in ash-laden air. Williman carried quills, parchment, and a rod of dragonglass for measure. They climbed a slope toward the nearest ruin. A colonnaded forum opened to the sky, floor cracked by fissures that glowed dull red in seams. Reliefs on columns depicted dragons intertwined with human forms, the old blood's creed of man and beast as one. The art had not eroded, it looked burned into place yesterday. Between two pillars lay a stone dais supporting a crystal obelisk, unbroken, as tall as 3 men. Runes crawled across its facets, pulsing faintly with inner light, violet, indigo, crimson. Jon reached out. The surface felt alive, warmer than flesh. Vaela inhaled sharply. "This was a seeing spike," she whispered. "Priests of the Red Key used them to commune across plains." She touched blood-soaked bandage at her shoulder as if the wound resonated. "Its heart still beats." Williman sketched, frantic. "We must remove it, study at the Citadel." "I could not lift that," Jon said. "And to pry a heart from its body doesn't make the body ours." Arya returned with gust of wings, dismounting lightly. "Dragon graves in cavern south," she reported. "Eggs too, cracked open long ago." Her face, though hardened, carried awe. "And chains heavy as anchor links. Someone bred and bound beasts here after the doom." Jon scanned the skyline. More spires pierced clouds to north, one crowned by a metal star that hummed. "We came for truth," he said, "and found riddles." Night fell sudden, ash clouds blotting dusk. They camped inside the forum, torches staked in a ring. Drum-like rumbles shook distant ground, geysers venting flames into darkness. Shade perched on a half-collapsed buttress, eyes glowing ember. Arya fed him lumps of salted boar. Jon could not sleep. He paced between pillars, long claw drawn. He felt watched, by ruins, by ancestors. The air vibrated. Phantom horns seemed to call in tongues beyond hearing. Then the obelisk light brightened. Baela, who kept vigil opposite, gasped. The crystal projected threads of fire that spun mid-air into an image. A man with silver hair and violet eyes, clad in robes of pre-doomed design. He spoke no words, yet Jon heard them in marrow. The song is waking, the chain undone, the rider binds or shatters. The face flickered, replaced by silhouette of 3 dragons circling Westeros, one larger than shade thrice over. The silhouette dissolved into map lines converging on King's Landing. The vision snapped away, leaving only humming stone. Arya was beside him now, blade naked. See it too? He nodded slow. The old blood plans a return. Williman looked terrified. A conjuration. Illusion. Baela's eyes brimmed. Prophecy. Jon exhaled the taste of sulfur. Warning. Morning's frail light revealed smoke columns on western horizon. Sails, not volcano, dozens. Far too many for their small crew to face. Arya climbed a ruined tower and counted. A fleet, bearing the chained serpent of Lys and the blue rose of Tyrosh. Seraphon's stepstone armada. Jon ordered immediate departure, but the outgoing tide stranded them on a sandbar of pumice. They'll be on us by dusk, Williman said, voice tight. Jon looked to Shade. One dragon might scatter fear, but a broadside of scorpions would cut those wings. Yet if they could send word. Arya answered his unspoken thought. I can outpace ships. Shade and I fly north. You sail east around peninsula, slip their flank while we draw them off. It's suicide, Baela said. Arya smiled. Feral. Only if I die. She sprang to Shade. Slapped scale, and the dragon shot skyward trailing ash clouds. War horns blared from approaching fleet. Jon watched the lone shape dart above sails. Flames flicking but purposeful. Arcs that taunted, never struck. The captains answered. Scorpions fired. Bolts arced high, then plunged impotent into sea. The fleet wheeled like hornets, chasing the gleam. Jon sized moment. Sailors heaved on capstan. Maesters chanted against foul winds, and Sea Raven scraped free into deeper current. She rounded a blistered headland before any cruiser sighted her. When Tyroshi hulks finally realized prey escaped, they split their formation, half continued pursuit of dragon, half tacked south after the cog. Jon prayed Arya's energy, and Shade's stamina would outrun their rage. 2 days of cat and rat followed, Sea Raven weaving through boiling shoals and pillars of smoke. The smaller Lyseni skirmisher Varax's closed range on second dusk, catapult knocking chips off stern rail. Mormont archers loosed black-fletched shafts dipped in night oil. One struck Varax's helmsman, sending ship veering into basalt reef with grinding shriek. Yet another Tyroshi sprinter plunged behind, firing flaming pots. Deck planks caught. Crew bucketed frantically. Amid ruin, a shout rang from Crow's Nest. Swan sails north. Relief swept deck. White harbor patrols under Stag and Mermaid banner. A flight of Northmen longships, lean and fierce, cut wind like knives, falling upon Tyroshi chase with grapples and boarding hooks. Steel flashed. The sea foamed red, and the raiders caught between jaws broke. Sea Raven limped onward. Smoke trailing. Jon gave thanks, then ordered course for Dragonstone instead of King's Landing. Closer, fortifications intact, beacon visible leagues. They landed 3 dawns later. Messengers raced to capital and Storm's End. Seraphon's flagship crippled but stepstones still muster. Arya missing south of Gullet. Shade last seen aflame across sky. In King's Landing, Raven bursts brought consternation. Sansa arrived at court 2 mornings later, cloak spattered from northern ride, ghost trotting proud. She strode into Jon's solar before he could change scorched jerkin. Their embrace was fierce yet wordless. Finally she spoke. Bran saw dragons over Valyria years ago. I wish we'd asked earlier what else he saw. Jon poured water for her. Perhaps he withheld to avoid panic. Or, because futures weave only when we walk them. She touched his seared sleeve. You walked fire. Now war comes through smoke. Are we ready? Not yet. But Davos may return with coin and ships. Gendry may bind Dorne, and Arya, he could not finish. Fear gnawed every hour with no sign. They stepped onto balcony. The wolf-dragon banner flapped high. Below, construction of new granaries and blacksmith forges hammered on. Bells tolled for midday prayer. Small folk bustled, not riot. Hope endured. Yet above the harbor, clouds swirled strange, tinged green. An omen, or perhaps merely storm. That night, Bran summoned them to the weirwood. Candlelight cast red shadows on his pale face. The east stirs, he said. What was broken seeks to remake itself in our likeness, yet without our mercy. Shade is hunted. Arya hides among reeds of disputed lands. She will find her way home if she recalls her name. Jon knelt. How do we keep realms safe? Bran's pupils dilated deep. Forge a chain of trust stronger than dragonfire. Gold may buy ships, dragons may burn them, but only hearts hold a kingdom. His gaze shifted to Sansa. You must wed. Sansa stiffened. Whom? A king marries realm, Bran replied, voice distant. And the realm now is both frost and flame. The match must speak that truth. Jon's pulse hammered. He looked at Sansa, his cousin, sister in every bond that mattered. The old lords would howl at incest whispers even false. The faith would balk, yet politically it fused north and south. But love? He cared for her as blood, not bride. He opened mouth to refuse. Sansa laid gentle hand on his arm. Peace may need sacrifices that do not wound the heart. I will consider. A week passed with no Arya. Davos' fleet still at sea. Gendry negotiating in Sunspear behind shuttered doors. Tension coiled tighter each court session. Jon took to patrolling city incognito at night. Black Watch cloak hiding features, testing pulse of alley markets. He found rumors of Lyseni spies hiring child-cut purses, whispers of wildfire caches hidden by Cersei never found, of sellswords in gold cloaks uniform plotting mutiny should Braavosi gold fail. The city sat on tinder. On the 12th night, horns blared from Old Gate, a lone rider under truce flag. Jon rode down with Brienne. The rider sagged in saddle, Arya Dotshare. Her cheek smeared ash, arm wrapped crude splints. Shade, nowhere. She slid down before fainting. They carried her to Maester Wolkin's care. Waking near dawn, Arya rasped tail. Shade lured half the fleet past Bloodstone, but Scorpion struck wing. Dragon crashed on barren islet. Arya dragged herself through marsh, found a smuggler who owed Davos favor. Shade breathed, wing bones broke. She left him hidden in cavern with goats for food. Fleet sails for Blackwater. She finished. You have days. Jon gripped her hand. We'll fetch him. Arya's eyes, dull yet burning, locked on his. Fetch the realm first. Dragon's a tool. People are blood. She sank back into sleep. Urgent councils turned to war. Yara's joint fleet stood ready at pike. Brienne marshaled Kingsguard and city levies. Sansa approved grain ration for siege. But coin lacked. With Iron Bank still silent, Jon took bold step. He opened royal vaults, selling last Targaryen jewels to buy tar, timber, and crossbows. Symbolic wealth melted into real defense. It won small folks' cheers. Lords frowned. 2 dawns later, black sails lined horizon. Seraphon survivors, reinforced by Volantine war dramans. They formed crescent at mouth of Blackwater. Catapults primed. But as drums beat for advance, horns thundered from northward Sea Lane. Davos' fleet returned, Braavosi banking galleys alongside. White sails emblazoned with Iron Bank sigil glittered, lone secured. On their bows stood Brienne, Sam, and Pyre wearing cloak of 7-pointed stars, new stitched. Caught between iron claws. Seraphon hesitated. Davos guided Morningstar alongside flagship Gilded Barrel, delivering parchment. Iron Bank extends exclusive credit line to Crown of Westeros. Any hostile force jeopardizing investment will meet Braavosi arms. Seraphon, raven hair ribboned gold, spat and ordered retreat. But Braavosi and Yara pressed, scuttling 2 rearmost cruisers. Only dusk and heavy squall saved the Taroshi, driving fleets apart. King's Landing erupted in celebration. Jon embraced Sam on quay. The maester nearly wept. "How did you sway them?" Sam sniffed. "Aying that peace seeds commerce. War reaps ash. Offered them first rights to rebuild Valyrian shipping lanes when, if, we secure them. And I placed the master copy of Hidden Dragon in the Iron Bank's deepest vault, chained to clause that release requires kingdom consent. Truth is now their collateral, too demanding to risk." Dender. Jon whistled softly. "You traded a book for a kingdom." "A book for a chance," Sam corrected. "They loaned the rest." Winter's first raven arrived early. Snow's dusted last hearth. The north braced for lean months. Jon traveled to Winterfell to hold harvest feast, leaving capital under Sansa's regency. In Godswood, he knelt by old heart tree, remembering his vow. Bran's voice seemed echo in rustle of red leaves. Steel is forged, words take root. He resolved to wed not for alliance, but for promise that Warden of North and King of South walk same path. On feast eve he approached Sansa in great hall lit by pine torches. "Bran's vision may bind us, but hearts choose shape," he told her. "We cannot wed. Our love is woven different, yet we can still unite realms." Sansa's smile was soft. "I hoped you'd say that." She produced letters sealed with golden stag and green rose, Storm's End and Highgarden. Lady Brienne writes from the Braavosi voyage. Gendry and Lady Lysa propose marriage. Gendry wields Baratheon hammer. Lysa holds Reach harvest. North respects Baratheon's honor. South trusts Tyrell root. Crown them as queen and lord protector, and between us peace will blossom. Jon laughed, a sound startling after weeks of ash and iron. "Storm and flower, I will bless it." The marriage took place at Old Septi ruins near Summerhall. Small but radiant. Gendry looked awkward in velvet, yet glowed with affection. Lysa Meadows, serene. Brienne, Sam, Davos, Yara, Pyre, Viola, whole tapestry of new realm, witnessed. Arya stood without sash or jewel, scars visible, applauding loudest. Bran arrived by litter, eyes luminescent. When he pronounced them bound, wind stirred, scattering petals and leaving hush like a held breath. That night, feasting boomed. Northern ale mingled with Dornish reds. Iron Bank envoys clinked cups with free folk chiefs. Tyrion Lannister appeared, robed plain as monks, and toasted the king's gamble. "A kingdom that borrows from truth may yet pay its debts," he quipped, earning groans and cheers. Later Jon slipped outside, found Arya seated on low wall staring south. Moonlight jeweled her hair. "Shade?" he asked. "Wing mended. He'll fly come spring." She smirked. "I'll take him somewhere quiet. Maybe west, where maps end." "Too quiet," Jon teased. Then more solemn. "Thank you. You saved thousands." Arya shrugged. "Saved myself from boredom." She rose, punched his shoulder. "Keep your realm, brother. I'll keep the edges sharp." She melted into shadows. Years turned under twin rule of King Jon and Lorekeeper Bran. Grain flows eased famine. Iron Bank loans built roads. Dorne signed treaty, securing stepstones. Shade grew vast, patrolled coasts, deterred pirates. Vaela founded a hospice in Dragonstone's shadows, healing broken minds haunted by war. Pyre administered Trident as justiciar, prove rebel can serve crown. The master copy of Samwell's book returned eventually, entombed beneath the Red Keep's new library built around Bran's weirwood sapling, roots intertwining with shelves, truth quite literally planted. In spring of Jon's 3rd year, word reached capital that a single colossal dragon, scales white gold, rose from Valyrian depths and winged west, riderless, breathing no flame yet trailing a song like weeping steel. No port claimed to see it land. Bran only smiled when told and said, "Some stories wait for listeners." Jon stood on balcony that twilight, circlet on brow, watching swallows swoop. Sansa joined him, her regent duties light now that councils ran smooth. Below, children played knights and dragons. Laughter gilded warm air. He asked her, "Do you ever regret the past we gave up?" She laid hand on stone railing. "The past gave us every piece to build this. Regret nothing that grounds the future." He thought of long nights on the wall, of blade in hand facing darkness, of Sam's trembling pen, of Valella's fervor, Arya's daring, Bran's cold wisdom, of every name inked on parchment, or lost beyond ink, that led here. Then let the future grow. He turned, descending stairs to hall where council waited. Bankers and bakers, maesters and spearwives, lords and smiths. He took his seat, not high above, but at circle's level, and listened. The kingdom would always wrestle with hunger, greed, fear, hope. The book would forever be debated. Dragons might return or vanish. Winters would come. But for this season, steel had been forged gentler, and words had indeed taken root. Outside, wind lifted the wolf-dragon banner. It snapped smartly, neither wolf nor dragon dominant, two halves interlaced so tightly that from distance it seemed wholly new. Creature of balance, born of ice, tempered by fire, flying fair above a realm that at last learned to stand unbroken in its own uneasy, extraordinary light. Oh. Jaina. One. Our wine. Mist pooled like spilled milk across the meadows below Summerhall's low hill, as a gray pre-dawn crept over the camped host. Jon stood outside his pavilion, wrapped in a cloak of heavy black wool that still smelled faintly of smoke from Harrenhal. The earth was spring-soft under his boots, exhaling the first shy scents of new grass, but the air carried the sting of frost. South-blown winter still nipped at ankle and wrist, a soft reminder that even the safest seasons could turn. Behind him, the torches that ringed the royal tents guttered in a stray breeze and spat resinous sparks toward a paling sky mottled lavender and bruised blue, like the hide of some slumbering giant just beginning to stir beneath a thin coverlet of clouds. He gazed down the slope toward the half-ruined walls, where Aegon the Unlikely had once dreamed of dragons centuries ago, yet only ashes and cracked stone remained now. Builders from Old Town had spent 2 moons shoring up the shell, so it would not collapse altogether, but they had been told to leave the ruin unrepaired beyond that, at Sansa's insistence. "Let folly stand as warning," she'd said, "and let the people see that we do not hide our ghosts behind new paint." Still, a single scaffold pole, and a drawn tarp, hung there like a shy veil, as if the place were ashamed of its broken bones. Jon wondered, not for the first time, what dreams lay buried in the rubble. Dreams of fire come alive, and hearts that never truly cooled. Behind him came the crunch of crisp turf. He did not need to turn to know it was Tyrion. The dwarf had returned to court 3 weeks earlier, sun-weathered from wandering the Crownlands collecting rumors about merchants and pirates, and had slipped as easily into governance as one might step into an old pair of boots. "I was afraid I would find you brooding at first light," Tyrion said, voice dry as cellar dust. "You did not disappoint." Jon let out a soft breath that might have been a laugh. "It is easier to brood than to sleep these nights. A king must husband his broodings. There is only so much daylight." Tyrion tucked his hands into the sleeves of a fur-lined traveling coat he still wore even inside pavilions. He claimed it made him look larger. "Council's at 7th bell. Sansa will raise harvest tariffs, and Sam needs signatures on the Braavosi note. The Iron Bank is keen to remind us that dragons may burn, but compound interest only grows. And damned. I will be there." Jon kept his eyes on the ruined keep. "Have you heard news of the white gold dragon? That every minstrel from Gulltown to Old Volantis now calls it the Dawnwing. That Braavosi gamblers wager whether it sails across Blackwater before Long Night's anniversary, and that Corthian merchants offer 10,000 stags for a single scale. Beyond that, only rumor." Tyrion studied him. "But rumors rule men's dreams. It would be good to turn some of them in our favor before they turn on us." "No. I know." Jon rubbed the patch of skin at his temple where the circlet sometimes pressed too hard. "Bran sees only a shape in storm. No name, no rider. Tyrion's mouth quirked. That may be better. A nameless beast is easier to reshape in song than a rider with ambitions. He lowered his voice. It could even be Drogon returned, if the gods favor storytellers. No one would mistake the color, but ballads rarely fret about pigments. Jon gave a small nod, not trusting himself to hope. Drogon, the last of Daenerys' children, had vanished east 2 years ago. Some said the Red Priests in Volantis served as keepers of a secret clutch, others that the dragon had flown beyond Sothorios. Ghost tales, most of them. Yet dreams sometimes bled into waking life in this world. Soft footfalls approached behind them, lighter than Tyrion's, heavier than a page's. Jon smelled oiled steel and crisp linen before Brienne's voice spoke. "Your Grace." "My lord. Scouts from the Dornish March have arrived. They bring a man who claims to have sailed within bowshot of the White Dragon." "Mentor." Tyrion's brows rose. "That was swift. Bring him to the Solar. But feed him first. A witness is more cooperative with a full belly." Jon turned, letting the ruin fade behind him. "Tell Sam to join us," he said. "And send for Gendry if he's awake." Brienne inclined her head, then strode off at her purposeful pace, each step measured, protective. Tyrion watched her go, sighed. "I should have married that one when I had the chance," he murmured. "Then I could at least claim I betted honor itself." Jon chuckled under breath. "You'd have broken your back before your vows. More likely had my neck broken by her brothers. Still, might have been worth the song." They left the chill for the relative warmth of the king's pavilion, its interior trimmed in northern gray with only a modest hearth. Jon had ordered the brazier downsized after one night of stifling heat. Sansa had rolled her eyes, reminding him kings were expected to display a bit of opulence now and again. But he had kept the smaller brazier and sent the gold-banded one to a makeshift infirmary outside Storm's End. Inside, soft morning lamps flickered on the canvas walls. A narrow table held maps, the day's bread, and a pitcher of watered wine. Jon poured 2 cups. Tyrion accepted. A vintage of yesterday's river. But he sipped anyway. Moments later, Brienne re-entered with a thin man of perhaps 35. Clean-shaven, but for a soul patch, hair bound in a damp tail. His eyes darted left and right, assessing. Salt encrusted his boots. A patched cloak bore 3 colors half faded. Behind him walked Sam, cheeks rosy from brisk wind, parchment tucked under one arm. Sam nodded respectfully to Jon and Tyrion, then trailed behind. The sailor sank to one knee. "Your Grace." "Sir Gavin of Nightsong by birth. But the sea claimed me long ago. Now I master a sloop called Wanderer's Luck." Tyrion's gaze flicked over the man, judging shabbiness versus practiced courtesy. "Tell his Grace what you saw." Gavin drew a breath like a man about to dive. 2 weeks south of Arbor, before dawn, sky clear but for a single cloud. We were hauling nets. I looked up and thought moonlight glinted off waves. Then the shape moved against the stars. A dragon, pale as fresh forged steel, wings longer than 2 cogs end to end. It drifted low, silent, but for the wind through its sails. No rider upon its back that I could see. By the time the rest of crew heard me shout and came on deck, the beast wheeled east. The reflection of its scales on water shone faint gold. We followed by sail for an hour, but when sun rose it vanished beyond a bank of fog. "Nine?" "And you told the scouts because?" Jon asked quietly. "Because the beast carried something in its talons, a chain of black metal links, bigger than anchor chain. And on each link hung bells that rang without clappers, just pure ringing, like glass shattering." Tyrion's eyes parted wide. "Bells?" Gavin nodded. My lord, bells." He hesitated. "I fought at Blackwater once, as sailor on a Lysini galley. The sound of those bells. It caused me tremble, like hearing dead men call. Menatondo." Jon glanced at Tyrion, whose face had drained of color at the mention of bells, memories of a certain day still raw. Sam, however, leaned forward. How many bells? 7, by my count. One larger than rest, hanging at foremost link. Sam chewed his lip. 7. God's number, prophecy's number, doomsday. Maester Marwyn wrote of a secret Valyrian rite. Sibylline bells rung to awaken slumbering fires. Tyrion exhaled. Wonderful. Another prophecy. Jon folded arms. If the dragon bears such a chain, where flies it next? Toward the broken arm, Gavin said. Old charts call those shoals the bell's fingers. Sam's eyes widened further. And the stepstones, site of constant war since the doom, sit just beyond. Jon rubbed the bridge of his nose. Sir Gavin, remain in camp. You will be given coin for your account, and pen for any further memories. The sailor bowed deeply. When he left, Sam turned to Jon. If these bells can truly wake ancient fires, they might rouse dragons still bound beneath the smoking sea. Tyrion raised brow. You think more dragons lie sleeping? The doom swallowed them all, I thought. No one knows. Sam gripped parchment. But some scholars suspect the Valyrians incubated eggs in magma chambers, storing them for ages. If that chain is ritual, it may be traveling from one site to the next, ringing keys in lock. Who would command such a beast without riding it? Tyrion asked. Unless? Sam swallowed. Unless the beast itself remembers commands of its makers. Jon felt a chill despite the brazier. Then we must intercept it, he said. Before bells ring again. Tyrion drummed knuckles on table. We still rebuild fleets after last skirmish, and Shade is not yet ready for battle. Arya says he favors his healed wing but cannot outfly heavy scorpion bolts. A chase by ship alone will fail. Sam looked from Tyrion to Jon. Perhaps we need something faster than ships. Ravens. Tyrion scoffed. Ravens do not carry nets. Jon stared at the tent wall where faint early light glimmered. There's another dragon, he said slowly. Smaller than Shade, hidden still. Daenerys spoke of 3 eggs. Drogon, Rhaegal, Viserion taunt. But sailors whispered she found a 4th shell in Qarth, traded to Shadowbinders. We searched Qarth's catalogs and found nothing. Yet, what if? Then Tyrion raised a finger. You toy with rumor. I toy with necessity. Jon turned to Sam. If old blood rouses fire, we need equal fire on our side. Fire sworn to mercy. Sam sighed. You want to send an expedition to scour Essos for a lost egg? A long gamble, but perhaps not as long. Tyrion mused. Lys and Tyrosh will chase gold. Braavos might sell us secrets for repayment. And Qarth traffics in wonders. We could dispatch a single swift vessel with coin and letters of marque. No. Jon nodded. Choose emissary who knows caravans and ports. Perhaps Davos. Davos is in Gulltown negotiating cedar masts, Tyrion said. But I can sail. Essos was almost a home once. A Lannister's purse still opens doors, even if lighter. Sam balked. You intend to lead a venture on the open sea. Better than rotting at council tables. Tyrion's grin lacked humor. I will take Podrick and 6 sell sails who owe me lost wagers. With luck, we return mother of all dowries. N.T. Jon placed a hand on Tyrion's shoulder. I cannot order you. Then consider it an unsolicited service. Tyrion squared his narrow shoulders. Brienne re-entered, brow knit. Lord Gendry awaits outside, and Sansa has asked to see you ahead of council. Tyrion waved. I am leaving. Tell her she may have my chair. He exited before they could protest. Jon sighed. Too many journeys, too many risks. Sam set parchment on table. All kings risk, but they plant seeds of hope. Jon nodded slowly. Write letters of marque for Tyrion. And summon Bran. Maybe the trees will show one clearer path. N.D. By 9th bell the council tent filled. In addition to usual faces, Gendry and Lady Lysa, Vaella pale but upright in simple russet, Aelys Karstark via scrying lens, her distant face flickering over a small glass spinner using maester optics newly learnt. Bran, wheeled by silent stable hand, positioned near the low dais. Sansa presided at Jon's left, her pale northern dress trimmed with Baratheon gold, symbolizing new ties. Brienne took post behind. When tap of staff silenced murmurs, Jon addressed the room. "You know our realm stands on uncertain ground, but ground can be tilled, seeded, made strong. We have foiled stepstone raids and secured Braavosi coin. Yet a greater unknown flies south, a dragon of white and gold, bearer of bells that may awaken powers we cannot control. We will intercept or distract this beast. Lord Tyrion sails to Essos to seek allies, and if rumor holds true, gasps murmured. Sansa inclined head calmly. She had prepared for this verdict, but still felt the weight of sudden authority like a hawk settling on her shoulder. Jon continued, "Sir Brienne will marshal a mobile host to follow the Dawnwing's path along coast. Gendry and Lysa secure harvest wagons to feed any hamlet scorched by stray flame. Samwell guides maesters to devise beacons that warn by colored smoke, should the White Dragon near populated lands." Vaela rose, placing palm on table. "And I will journey to Dragonstone's depths, where lords of fire once sang heat into stone. If the bells ring spells, we must answer with wardings of our own." "Thou." Jon met her gaze. "Take whomever you need." She inclined her head, the copper pendant at her throat glowing faintly. Only Bran spoke then, voice soft yet carrying, eyes half-lidded. "A chain may bind or break. Remember, brother, that forging requires fire and hammer both, and quenching in cool water lest sword snap. Let not zeal forge without love's temper." Silence fell longer this time. Jon bowed. "I hear." He dismissed the council. Weeks thinned into a hazy sequence of travel and tidings. Tyrion's swift carrack, Maiden's shrug, slipped out of Dragonstone under cloak of thick morning fog. Podrick manned the bow, humming bawdy ditties, while Tyrion wrote letters introducing himself as Tycho's faithful debtor to every bank port across the narrow sea. They would tack to Pentos, then Meereen, so far reopened as free city under council of freedmen, and at last Korth if seas held. Tyrion's chest of coin and diamonds jingled like a drunken tambourine whenever waves smacked the hull. Brienne's mobile host, a mix of city watch outriders, Karstark cavalry, and 100 Stormlands bowmen, shadowed the coast, racing from Sweetport Sound to Arbor, raising watchtowers and string lines of colored lanterns keyed to Sam's system. Red for dragon spotted heading north, yellow for south, green for vanished. Fisherfolk welcomed them, though some prayed to the drowned god at sight of the wolf dragon banners, fearful of old kings re-emerging to demand tithes. Vaela's expedition tunneled deep beneath Dragonstone where newly charted vents shimmered with heat. She wrote of basalt corridors carved in spirals, runes glowing faint red when touched by blood. One letter described a sealed arch etched with twin serpents devouring each other's tails. Behind it, she suspected, lay a resonance chamber for controlling blazeworms, a word unknown to maesters. Her letters ended with a plea for Jon to send shade once his wing fully healed. The walls crave dragon breath. Without it, the sigils remain dormant. Shade meanwhile roamed the skies over northern Stormlands, testing his mended wing in widening circles under Arya's stern watch. She coaxed him with goat carcasses hung from ballista darts, training evasive dives. Farmers gaped as his glossy black form looped across pale sunset, the wing patch of lighter new scales shining like a stitched quilt. Arya wrote only laconic updates. Wing 80%. Fire steady, attitude insolent. Jon laughed for the first time in days at that line. Then, less than a moon after council, a new raven arrived. Sent from a coastal septi near Stonehelm, its scroll bore a smear of fresh blood. The septon's frantic script told of hearing 7 deep peals echo across the sea before dawn. Bells, 7 of them, vast and resonant, rolling like thunder yet sweeter than any cathedral chime. With each pulse, the sea glowed faint gold. Shortly after, a fishing hamlet 4 leagues south was found charred, though no witness saw flame. Survivors spoke of birds dropping from the sky as if struck by unseen heat. Jon clenched the parchment so tight the ink bled onto his thumb. The white gold dragon had rung its chain. Sansa sat opposite in the solar. "Brienne rides west of there," she said. "They'll reach the hamlet by nightfall." She studied Jon's gaze. "You wish to go yourself?" He exhaled. "Yes. If prophecy unfolds, I must confront it. You are king. Your life has weight beyond your own bones. If fire takes root unchecked, weight will not matter." He rubbed a knuckle along the map's coast. "I will not ride alone. Arya will escort with shade, wing ready or not. Gendry's harvest trains depart in 2 days," she reminded. "And you promised to bless them." He looked up. "Then hold the blessing yourself. Hand of the king." Sansa's lips tightened, but she nodded. "I will manage." She rose, brushed her skirt smooth. "But promise me this. If you face that dragon, remember mercy. Rings of bells haunt these lands. Don't let them haunt us again." He stood, stepped around table, embraced her. She felt cool and strong against him. "I promise." That night he sent ravens. One to Brienne to rendezvous at the burned hamlet, another to Arya to saddle Shade, a third to Bran requesting guidance of Weirwood site. Bran's reply arrived by morning raven, single sentence: "Where the 7th bell tolls, find the rider you do not seek." Jon puzzled over cryptic words as he buckled sword belt. Then he set off. The ride south was swift. 4 dozen direwolf lancers under Mormont banners, boots wrapped in oiled wool to muffle thuds, armor dulled with ash. The June air smelled of pine and distant brine. They reached the hamlet by dusk. Char indeed marred every beam. Sheep lay blackened, not roasted, bones brittle as chalk. Water in wells steamed though day's heat waned. Brienne's host encamped on a ridge. Her lanterns cast flickering bars over the lifeless fields. Brienne met Jon at the ruined sept, helm under her arm. No survivors remain, but prints, dragon talons, pressed in soil north of village, and deeper, as if bearing weight we cannot guess. Jon crouched near a sagging wall. Faint metallic dust littered ground, glittering like starlight. He dipped gloved fingers. They tingled. "Gold," he whispered, "distilled by heat." He stood. "Where are the bells?" Brienne gestured toward the strand beyond dune scrub. They lit torches and walked. At water's edge lay a single iron link thicker than a man's waist. From it hung a bell, half crushed against rock. Sea washed through it with mournful moan. Jon touched its side, ice cold, despite the scorch marks. "Dragon dropped burden," Brienne said. "Or cast it away. Perhaps the chain leads elsewhere." Jon stared at horizon. Clouds glowed faintly to southwest, a pulse of gold like faraway lightning. 6 bells remain at least. The 7th toll awaited here. Shade's cry echoed overhead. Jon looked up to see black wings cutting twilight. Shade dropped, landing on hillside, Arya slipping from saddle. "Burn marks are fresh," she called. Dragon flew south, along Cape Wrath. 3 hours passed. "We can track." Jon faced Brienne. "Follow by coast road. If you lose us, hold stepstones poured at Noin and wait." Brienne saluted. Moments later, Arya and Jon mounted Shade together. Jon had flown only twice and never enjoyed it. Wind tore eyes, and there was always sense of falling. But now, urgency outweighed fear. Shade's muscles quivered under them. "South," Jon said. "But keep high." Arya clicked her tongue. Dragon wings pounded sky. Fields rushed beneath, gleaming pale in moonrise. Jon's cloak flared, the cold bit teeth of salt at his face. Yet in that rush, he felt alive. Each heartbeat hammered against cold iron of night. They crossed Cape Wrath before full dark. Sea to their left black as jet, cliffs glimmering faint. Far ahead, a golden luminescence pulsed, rising and falling, as if lightning were trapped inside a lantern. They descended onto a high promontory overlooking the Stepstone Strait. Below, on a spit of volcanic rock, the white gold dragon roosted. It dwarfed Shade by half again, neck long as a rock blade, horns sweeping back in crown. Its scales shimmered pearl and pale lemon in moonlight. Around it, lay 6 more bells, each bigger than a wine cask, bound to black chain loops. The dragon touched them gently with its snout, as though tasting metal, then lifted head and exhaled shimmering breath, neither flame nor frost, but a column of heated air that rippled light. Jon and Arya crouched behind ridge rocks, shade growling low. The white beast stiffened, nostrils flaring. It turned golden eyes toward them. In that gaze Jon felt neither hatred nor malice, only profound focus, as if studying a problem. "Arya," he whispered, "if I speak to it, hold shade." She raised brow. "Speak." He shrugged. "It carries bells. Perhaps it remembers words." He rose beyond ridge. The white dragon unfurled wings, half rising. Wind blasted. Sand whipped. Jon lifted palms empty. "I am Jon," he called, voice steady. "I mean no harm." The dragon's pupils narrowed to slits, then dilated. It made a soft chuff. Bells jingled faintly. Jon stepped forward under moon. Then a shadow separated from rocks near beast's flank, a hooded figure in robes of shimmering midnight and copper. A staff, tipped with dragon glass, weighed his hand. Jon froze. Ryder had been present all along, cloaked by stillness. The figure lowered hood. Silver blonde hair fell to shoulders, framing a face too young, barely 20, yet eyes older than storms. A Valyrian countenance, unmistakable. He spoke Valyrian words. Jon caught only a few. Vezof, Ziri Druta, Renazma. The dragon rumbled, settled. Jon replied in common. "Who are you?" The youth smiled with lips like sharpened pearl. "I, who was named Orion in Old Tongue, now called the Bell Waker." His accent flowed like wine. "I ring the world back to its proper shape." Arya slipped to Jon's side, needle naked. Shade crouched behind. Orion glanced at her. "Little wolf of many names, you wear the face of death but fear it none." Jon stepped between. "What shape do you seek? Fire and blood again?" "Balance," Orion said. "Valyria fell leaping too high. Westeros crawls. Both extremes yield ruin. Bells call dragons not to burn towns, but to rebuild order older than 7 or red or old gods. Your bells charred a village." Jon barked. "A tragedy of resonance," Orion answered coolly. "Mortal homes too fragile for first peal. But I mourn. I would atone when the work is done." Arya's fingers flexed on needle. "How many must die for your atonement?" Orion's eyes glinted. "Fewer than will die if chaos spreads. Your brother king tries. Admirable. Yet coins and granaries will not hold realms when summers fade. Dragons unify." He gestured to bells. 7 keys. 6 tolls yet ring. Then dragons beneath smoking sea will hear parents call and rise, not savage but guided by true blood. He tapped his chest. Jon shook head. "You cannot guide fire. It devours leash and master. Named sea. Unless master is flameborn." Orion stepped forward. "I offer alliance. Join bells. Claim half my command. We temper dragons with stark honor, Valyrian will. Together we carve peace." Arya snorted. "I prefer peace unsliced." Jon spoke. "My mother was Stark, my father Targaryen. I know both bloods, and I know needless death. Your bells ring death." Orion sighed. "Then you oppose destiny." He lifted staff. "I will not slay kin but stand aside." Jon drew Longclaw. "Never." A low groan rose from White Dragon. It lunged. Too fast. Shade leapt to intercept, jaws clashing. Moonlight flared against colliding scales. The impact rattled Jon's bones, air filled with sulfur. Shade hissed flame. White Dragon dodged, breath swirling like molten glass that deflected with no burn but heat, so intense Jon felt hair singe. Bells clanged. Orion raised staff. Obsidian tip glowed. From the chain, one bell vibrated, a note deep and mournful. The ground trembled. Far in distance, Sea bulged as if something stirred beneath. Arya screamed, "Stop the bell!" She sprinted low, dagger in fist. Jon charged Orien. Their blades met staff. Dragon glass sparked against Valyrian steel. Orien, agile as eel, parried, kicked Jon's knee, nearly toppled him. Jon slashed. Staff caught blade groove. They circled, sand swirling. Shade claw at white dragon's shoulder, ripping scales. Golden ichor sprayed. The beast shrieked, blasted concussive breath. Wing shielding. Jon fighted left, pivoted, sliced staff head. Obsidian cracked. Shards flying. Bells fell silent. Orien's eyes widened. Jon pressed, but the Valyrian twisted free. Whistled a sharp note. White dragon disengaged. Jumped across chain, wings beating. Orien vaulted onto neck with preternatural grace. Their ascent kicked sandstorm. Jon ran to chain, hacking at link that joined next bell. Arya grabbed second bell's rim. Together they pushed, mighty but inert. Shade limped beside them, bleeding but alive. The white dragon wheeled overhead, shedding bloodlit droplets. Orien's voice boomed. "You break tide now, but sea still rises. I shall ring fifth bell in furnace straits. Meet me there with answer, or face flood of flame." Nine. With single beat the dragon soared seaward, bells jangling faintly, though chain now shorter. Soon only moonlight and hiss of surf remained. Arya sank to knees, breathing hard. Shade pressed snout to her. Jon knelt beside, chest heaving. "We stopped one bell," he panted. She wiped sweat. "But 5 remain." He looked to horizon where white speck dwindled. Bran said, "Fine rider, I do not seek. I found him. Now I must stop him." Arya rose. "Not alone." He embraced her briefly. "Gather shade to Dragonstone. Vaela may know how to mend his wounds and drain Bel's power. I ride to Storm's End to rally fleet." "Ah." She touched his cheek. "Meet you at Furnace Straits. At Storm's End, wild winds battered ramparts." Gendry greeted Jon with sooty grin, hammer slung. "We heard Bell south. Got every ship in bay ready. Harvest wagons anchored, not rolling. Grain can wait if realm burns." Jon gripped his arm. "We sail within day. Orien strikes next at Furnace Straits. Ring of volcanic islets between stepstones. Have scorpions primed." Lysa passed him scrolls. Updated manifests, loan promises. Sansa's signature bold. Jon kissed them, a silent thanks. By nightfall, fleet raised sails. Baratheon stags. Wolf dragons, Tyrell roses, Braavosi 3 heads. Yara's ironborn longships flanked. Hungry for revenge. In cabin lit by storm lantern. Sam delivered Vaela's raven. Chamber beneath Dragonstone, awakening to shades, blood. Bring chain link for counter-resonance. Jon secured it in ironwood box. Next dusk they met Arya's wing above gullet. Shade, wing bandaged, flew protective arcs. Arya shouted windborne. Vaela forging songstone to mute bells. "Needs time." Jon signaled yes. 3 days later, they reached Furnace Straits. Water there steamed even in winter. Geysers hissed from vents. Orien's white dragon circled highest islet where magma bubbled like soup beneath thin crust. 4 bells now dangled. Orien raised staff, newly topped with quartz. Battle commenced before parley. Baratheon scorpions fired, bolts sparked off pearl scales. Braavosi galleys loosed harpoons on chain, snagging 1 bell, hauling it splashing into sea where heat cracked metal. The note died with sizzle. Orien retaliated. Dragon breath struck galley mast. Wood softened. Crew boiled alive, though not aflame. Ironborn swung grapples, trying to climb beast. Tailswipes hurled them screaming. Jon on flagship, Stormbreak, shouted commands, laced chain link from stone helm to prow. Songstone amulet hummed, Valyrian chanting from deck. As White Dragon closed, Jon struck shield with sword, causing link to vibrate. Songstone amplified, emitting opposite resonance. Bells rang discordant, White Dragon shuddering midair. Orion grimaced, blood at nostril. He steered beast dive toward Stormbreak, but Shade intercepted, jaws clamping throat, forcing Dragon aside. Both tumbled into sea, vanished in cloud of steam. Jon's heart seized. Arya still clung to Shade's ridge, rings of foam erupted. Moments later Shade surfaced, wings beating water, coughing steam. White Dragon rose behind, battered. Jon signaled Yara. Her flagship launched fire barrels, alchemist jars, burst near beast, coating scales in slick paste that flared blue when Dragon's own breath ignited inadvertently. Roar split air. Orion screamed to sky, "Enough!" He flung staff into sea. Bells detached, sinking. Dragon, wounded, flapped westward, away. Fleet let it go. Scorpions quiet. Jon zagged. But Sam shouted from rail, "Look!" From boiling water rose bubbles immense, popping to reveal two shapes. Eggshells, white and gold, bobbing like ghost boats. Valyrian's voice trembled. Hatchlings quickened by bells. Crew hauled them with nets, shielded in damp blankets. Valyrian touched one. Warmth pulsed. Jon gazed down. "We cannot let monsters loose." Valyrian looked up. "Nor bury hope unborn." He met her eyes, then scanned faces of sailors, soldiers, priests, each bearing scars of war yet shining with wonder. He sheathed Longclaw. "We rear them right," he said. "Teach them the same vow I bear, to guard, not burn." Arya landed Shade on deck, dripping. She smirked. "Between Ghostwolf, Crippleseer, and Queen of Quills, we might as well adopt dragons." Jon laughed. "Horse. So we shall." Orion's fate faded into horizon that night. Scouts later whispered he limped toward ruins of Valyria. Bells gone. Purpose broken. Maybe he would heal and return, maybe perish. Yet realm hailed victory. Months turned. Winter snows melted late but sure. At Dragonstone, hatchlings emerged. One cream with gold flecks, named Dawnstar by Arya. One palest blue, with silver belly, named Mercy by Valyrian. Shade, protective, curled around them. Valyrian's songstones hung at Rookery Arch, damping any uncontrolled shrieks. Tyrion returned from east with tales of Korth warlocks in disarray, their rumored egg a broken geode. Yet he brought back crates of silk, ink, and spices, a trade pact promising wealth. Podrick knighted on deck. Bran's weirwood roots blossomed crimson flowers, first ever recorded, within Red Keep Library courtyard. Maesters curious. Small folk called them dragon roses, omens of prosper. In spring, Jon convened convocation at Isle of Faces. Lords, priests, tradesmen, free folk, ironborn, and even a delegation of Dothraki herders, newly settled in abandoned reach pastures under Tyrell oversight. They drafted the Pact of Seven Streams, binding realm by council of voices weighted by need, not birth. Bells rang in every city at signing. Small bronze bells cast from melted weapon hilts, tuned to harmony Sam determined safe. People wept, gladdened that bells once curse now heralded peace. Yet Jon stood at water's edge that night, circlet tucked in belt, and remembered charred hamlet, faces never counted. Sansa joined him. "You carry ghosts," she said. "So does everyone," he answered. "But mine rattle loud in bells." She slipped hand into his, then drowned them with kinder chimes. Far away, at smoking sea, a white dragon curled on obsidian spire, nursing wounded pride. Orion sat beneath, listening to rumble of earth, forging new vision where chain of seven became our chorus of many. Whether vengeance or redemption, the future waited its turning. But for now, under banners of wolf dragon and song of tempered bells, Westeros breathed easier. Small folk sowed fields without fear. Ships sailed bright with trade, and 2 hatchling dragons learned not to scorch ants for sport, but to ride coastal updrafts and land when called. And high above all, Bran wove memory into limb and leaf, watching dawn each day, noting how light never repeated color exactly, and how even the smallest shift in hue could sway the story of a world determined, at last, to outgrow its ancient wounds and step, however uncertainly, into the grace of a gentler age. Snow fell on Dragonstone for the first time in a century, thin white skeins that curled against the basalt ramparts and vanished in hiss coils of steam. Sea wind carried the smell of brine and sulfur into the highest courtyard, where the 3 dragons, Shade, Dawnstar, and Mercy, nested beneath a lattice of black iron spars. Their wing beats crushed flakes to vapor, yet the flurry persisted, flitting like moths through the sulphurous updrafts. Jon watched from the parapet, the furred collar of his cloak glittering with beads that melted as quickly as they formed. It was dawn, the tide low enough to bear the dragon-shaped rock out beyond the breakers, the ancient headland that had given the fortress its name. Gulls wheeled there, pecking at kelp. In the hush between their cries he could hear the rumble of distant forges, Davos carpenters refitting the last of the Braavosi galleys, and Gendry smiths tempering mast rings fashioned from the melted bells. Below, on the level where the courtyard gave onto the citadel stairs, Valyria stooped over a brass brazier. Every few heartbeats she struck its rim with a rod of songstone cut from the broken chain link, each tap coaxing a single harmonic note that pulsed along the word lines painted on the ground. The sound was barely audible, a low hum that seemed to creep inside bone rather than travel through air. But at every stroke, the hatchlings settled. Dawnstar's feathery crest lay flat. Mercy tucked her pale blue head beneath Shade's scorched wing. Even obstinate Shade exhaled a lazy plume and drooped eyelids like a cat before the hearth. Arya lounged nearby, arms folded, ghost of a grin on her lips. "Told you they liked the tune," she said as Jon descended. Her leathers were streaked with wet ash, hair pulled into a jagged tail. Valyria's got them near purring. Purring dragons. Jon shook his head. If the maesters in Old Town could see this, they'd demand a new taxonomy. "And new armor," Arya quipped. She flicked a snowflake off Mercy's nose. The hatchling sneezed sparks. Jon stopped beside Valyria and bowed his head in greeting. "How long until their next flight?" 3 days, if the wind holds." She touched her shoulder. The wound where the crossbow bolt had struck was healed, but tender and cold. Dawnstar's keel bones are stronger now. Mercy's still light, but she glides on thermals like a seabird. Shade can bear them both in his slipstream if he doesn't decide to show off. "Ben?" Arya snorted. "He always shows off." Jon studied the dragons. Dawnstar's scales had deepened from cream to pearlescent peach, each edged with gold that blazed where the snowlight struck. Mercy glimmered palest lapis, crossed by silver motes like frost on cobalt glass. 2 living promises he had sworn to raise in peace, promises that weighed heavier than any crown. A bell pealed then, echoing up from the lower yard. This one was small and bronze, cast from broken swords, tuned by Samwell's careful ear, so it rang a mellow E, rather than the doom's shrill dissonance. Its note summoned the morning council. Jon felt the tug of duty, and sighed. "Keep them quiet, Valyria. If Stepstone raiders spy a dragon silhouette over Storm's End, they'll spread tales of apocalypse. Let them." Arya's eyes gleamed. "Keeps them afraid to raid." "Fear alone never held a realm," Jon reminded her. But he clasped her shoulder before turning away. "I'll send for you before the next flight." She nodded, already losing interest, eyes on Shade's jagged talon where molten scale still healed. The high council chamber of Dragonstone, the same cavernous hall where Stannis Baratheon had once brooded over a painted table, had been thawed to livable warmth by 20 brass braziers and a new bank of leaded windows that faced the pale morning sea. Sansa sat at the table's western edge, ledger open, a Tyrol quill bobbing in her fingers. Across from her, Davos ran calloused thumbs over a roster of shipwrights. Beside him, Gendry clicked a charcoal stylus between teeth, sketching another design for steel-shod plowshares to replace the wooden ones lost in the last frost. Sam stood near the head of the table with Tyrion's empty chair to his right. Tyrion had not yet returned from Volantis, and every ravenless day raised new mutterings about corsairs or plague. Pyre, the reformed rebel, leaned against a column, flicking through a sheaf of vellum stamped with the Riverlight's sigil. Charters for canal lock dredging that would make the Trident navigable again, from River Run to Maidenpool. Brienne and Yara entered with Jon, snowflakes dissolving on their cloaks. Brienne took her post behind Sansa. Yara sprawled into a seat, boots on a trestle. "Reports," Jon prompted. Sam spoke first. "From the north, last of the winter grain exported from White Harbor has passed the Bight, bound for Gulltown, then on to King's Landing. No banditry reported. Lady Lyanna Mormont credits the Wolf Dragon coin. She claims it buys more loyalty than blunt steel." "Then?" Gendry grunted. "Coin minted from melted toll bars isn't bad either." Sansa glanced up. "House Manderly requests permission to expand their shipyards and build 8 new cogs. They fear Braavosi competition." Jon considered. "Grant 4 hulls this year. 4 next, contingent on replacing at least half with grain galleys. The realm needs bellies filled more than purses." Sam made a note. "Next. The Iron Bank dispatch confirms our second repayment received and interest recalculated. We remain solvent, but only if we maintain customs revenue." Which brings us to Yara. Nemcho. The Greyjoy woman swung her boots down. "Piracy in the southern straits is worse than ever. Tyroshi privateers blame us for sinking Seraphon's fleet. They strike anything flying Baratheon, Tyrell, or Wolf Dragon. As long as war between Lyse and Tyrosh smolders, they'll prey on trade to fund it." Davos folded arms. "Same old game. We offer convoy." "We don't have convoy ships enough," Sansa said. 3 groups need escort. Grain from the Reach, iron from the Isles, timber from the Stormlands." She lifted the ledger. "We can cover 2 without thinning the Blackwater Guard." Jon drummed fingers on the painted table's depiction of Dorne. "Then we must quiet the Stepstones for good." Brienne's brow furrowed. "Invasion? Occupation." Yara smirked. "Send me. Ironborn were raiders. We know how to hold reefs. Give me 2 dragons, and I'll take the islands in a fortnight." Jon raised a hand. "The hatchlings stay behind. Shade can accompany, under cloak of night." "They yell." Sansa's icy gaze cut to Yara. "And what keeps you from carving a kingdom like your ancestors?" Yara spread her palms. "Your dragons, your coins, and the fact the throne pays better than any plunder now." Jon's mouth twitched. "You'll have my authority, on one condition. We bring the Stepstones into the realm, not crush them. Many there are fishermen and farmers under pirate lords' yokes." "Knives sheathed," Yara agreed, though her grin remained shark-sharp. "Mostly sheathed." Brienne produced a wax tablet. "Lord Gendry has drafted fort specifications for each island. A low stone curtain, 2 scorpion towers, and a grain depot. Cost minimal compared with warships." Gendry shoved the charcoal sketch forward. "Stone's cheaper than sailors' lives." Sam looked to Pyre. "Can Riverlight? Spare engineers?" Pyre inclined his head. "A dozen. And 200 laborers freshly pardoned. Better they build walls than swing from them." Don nodded. "Then it's settled. Yara sails at dawn with Brienne commanding ground forces once ashore. Shade will serve as deterrent. Arya will remain to train hatchlings and oversee Dragonstone wards." "Then sin." Sansa sighed. "One more front. Last," Jon promised. "No new wars. We root piracy or we starve." Brienne clasped gauntlets over pommel of her sword. "I will see it done." 3 days later, the fleet set sail beneath a bruised sky. Brienne's banner, a white tower on sapphire, fluttered at Yara's prow. Above it circled Shade, the silhouette judged by onlookers as omen of victory or doom, depending on their last tax bill. Grain galleys hugged the lee of the warships. Jon remained uneasy. Each departure stretched the realm's sinews further. And Tyrion still absent. He walked the sea wall that evening, wind needling through him despite black wool. At last light, he stopped by the rookery tower. A single raven sat alone, late return, scroll bound to its leg. Jon coaxed it down, fingers steady. The wax bore Tyrion's lion seal. He broke it, unfurled parchment no longer than his hand. The first line: "I have found the fourth egg, not cracked but clutched by claws of glass." Jon blinked. The rest read: "In Meereen's crypt of pale queens. Warlocks trade prophecy for silver, but rebels trade it for blood. Send no fleet. Send words. The egg is bait. I'll stall. Trust the girl in green mask." No signature. Just a blotch of ink. Jon stared out toward the east, where clouds flickered from heat lightning beyond horizon's curve. Another dragon egg. Real this time. And spies who knew the value. He rolled the message, mind racing. Sansa would counsel caution. Sam would demand more detail. Arya would volunteer to steal it that night. Snowflakes again. Fewer now. Melting on his glove. Dragonstone's first snow in a century. He thought of the prophecy Orion had uttered. Valyria leapt too high. Westeros crawls. Balance. Balance, he whispered to the dark. So we will answer with mercy and steel alike. He carried the raven to Sam's quarters, where candlelight flickered over maps of Essos. The fat maester read the scrap twice, eyes widening. Fourth egg. Claws of glass. Obsidian guardians, maybe. Meereen's crypts are labyrinthine. Can we trust this message? Jon asked. Tyrion's hand, no doubt. But the girl in green mask? A green grace, perhaps. The temple uses masks of jade to represent prophecy. Sam chewed, lip hot. It could be trap. Everything is. Jon stared at salted parchment. Yet if the warlocks hold such an egg, they'll hatch it through blood rites. Another Orion. Sam shivered. Then we act. Jon exhaled. Send ravens to Bravos. Request quiet blockade of Slaver's Bay. They owe us for the Stepstone Treaty. Ready a single swift ship, no banners. You plan to sail personally? I plan to sail small, silent, and retrieve our friend. And if an egg exists, to bring it home. Sam's brow furrowed. Sansa. We'll manage the realm. Jon set palm on map. I leave at moonrise. Only you, Arya, Vaela know. Outside, another bell rang. Soft, measured, pure. The new bells. Sam's bells. They tolled the 9th hour, closing the harbor gates and signaling the shift change in forges. Jon listened, heard no scream in their note, only promise. A note that could herald wheat shipments or winter warnings equally. Balance. A king on a skiff, Sam murmured. Fisherfolk will never believe it. Let's hope no one sees to doubt. Jon smiled, weary but resolute. Prepare provisions. And write a letter to Bran. He'll know which currents hide us. Them too. Moonless night. Faint starlight. A single lamp shrouded. The skiff's snowmelt slipped from Dragonstone's lee at slack tide, oars muffled. Jon wore plain sailor's jerkin, Longclaw wrapped in canvas at the stern. Arya waited on the quay. Shade looming behind her. She offered 2 fingers in silent salute. Vaela was not in view. She would keep the dragons calmed in his absence. Sam stood amid crates, watching, eyes wet but shining. The prow kissed the dark water like a whisper. Jon felt the sea's cold grip, familiar from his childhood days at White Harbor. He looked back once. Lamplight in Vaela's Dragoncourt steam haloed. The rookery tower tipped with red glow where maesters burned night oil. Sansa's tall shadow on the curtain wall. Unmoving, guardian of the realm. Then he turned to the east. Wind filled the small sail. The snow melt angled beyond the headland, into open sea, and the star-crowned dark. Jon set his jaw, feeling the pulse of waves like a second heart. Ahead lay Meereen, warlocks, an egg older than kingdoms, and Tyrion, the irrepressible dwarf, whose gamble might yet tilt the world anew. He thought of Orion nursing his dragon in hidden ruins, of Yara storming reefs beneath shade's silent vigil, of Bran's cryptic visions, of two hatchlings dreaming under Vaela's lullaby. Dragons old, dragons new, dragons dreamed. Balance. Ice rising to meet fire, not extinguish it. As Dragonstone receded, the snowflakes ceased, replaced by salt spray glittering like sparks. Jon breathed deep the mingled scents of pine tar and open water. Whatever came, he would meet it not as the reluctant bastard of Winterfell, nor the hidden heir of a fallen line, but as the king who had chosen, again and again, to guard rather than conquer. A king on a skiff in the dark, rowing into story still unwritten. He tightened his grip on the tiller, steering toward the faintest glow on the horizon. No sunrise, but the ghost light of some far-off thunderstorm over the summer sea. Behind it lay Meereen, and answers, and the trembling unknown. Steady, he whispered to wind and water both. And the snowmelt answered, cutting a thin silent path eastward, a needle-stitching seam between worlds.